house of the rising sun.
Yeah. On the road to victory, yeah.
Come on!
On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong and we ain't backing down.
Yeah.
Cause we fed up of the school, let's dictate how we're running the island.
Oh, yeah.
This man come to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. The only raising the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
stand your ground.
It's only home invasion,
stand your ground. Proud the light been raised, stand your ground. And only guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground. This current administration, they don't care about the people.
No way.
Everything they do in this country, yeah, it's to fulfill the ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't riot yet.
It's time for we to stand firm and show them right now we upset. So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. The only raising the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
stand your ground.
It's only home invasion,
stand your ground. Proud the light been raised, stand your ground. And only guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground.
Oh yeah. On the road to victory, yeah. On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground. Don't back down.
So we don't back down, stand your ground. 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 House of the rising sun.
Yeah. On the road to victory, yeah.
Come on!
On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back
On
down.
the road to victory, standing strong and we ain't backing down.
Yeah.
Cause we fed up of the school, let's dictate how we're running the island.
Oh
This man
yeah.
come to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back.
Gotta
So it's time
stand
for
your
us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. The only raising the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
Stand your ground.
It's only home invasion,
Stand your ground. Proud the light been raised, stand your ground. And only guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground. This current administration, they don't care about the people.
No way.
Everything they do in this country, yeah, it's to fulfill the ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't riot yet.
It's time for we to stand firm and show them right now we upset. So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. The only raising the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
Stand your ground.
It's only home invasion,
Stand your ground. Proud the light been raised, stand your ground. And only guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground.
Oh yeah. On the road to victory, yeah. On the road to victory, you gotta
house of the rising sun.
Yeah. On the road to victory, yeah.
Come on!
On the road to victory, you gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong, and we ain't backing down.
Yeah.
Cause we fed up of this clueless dictator, we're running the island.
Oh, yeah.
This man come to mash up the country. Now the people have to push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high, stand your ground. And every 2 months pass, stand your ground. The only raising the gas, stand your ground.
All across the nation,
Stand your ground.
it's only home invasion.
Stand your ground. For all the light been raised, stand your ground. And only guns in the place, stand your ground. So we don't back down, 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 stand your ground. This current administration, they don't care about the people.
No way.
Everything they do in this country here is to fulfill their ego.
These people raise the gas and they laughing, saying how we ain't riot yet.
It's time for we to stand firm and show them right now we upset. So stand your ground. And if you're fed up of the crime, stand your ground. The food
Public business, government business, bills, second reading. Honorable members, I shall now propose the question for debate. The question is that a bill entitled An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2024 be now read a second time. Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Can I get a mic, please? I look forward to contributing in this Budget 2024 debate, and I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity, as I thank members of this Honourable House. We undertake budget consultations every year, pre-budget consultations, following upon the founding principles and tenets of our great UNC party, to be the true voice of the people and to faithfully represent all their interests and needs in the Parliament, for they are the ones who have put us here. It has always been our mantra that no citizen will ever be left behind by the UNC. Through us, they will always have a voice. So I want to thank citizens and representatives from all the NGOs, labor unions, business organizations, and other groups who attended the many national pre-budget consultations and stakeholder meetings that the UNC held across the country. I want to also thank those NGOs who sent us written submissions. Thanks also to all our MPs and senators, councillors, aldermen, the staff of the constituency opposition offices, the staff of the Office of the Leader of the Opposition, and of course, I express my ongoing gratitude to the great constituents of Superior who have elected me to serve as their MP since 1995. At our budget consultations, several issues were raised, but the number one issue was crime. Coupled with that was the issue of water, or lack thereof, the high cost of living, joblessness, infrastructure, amongst others. As has happened before, this budget contains some new promises by government, which has not even kept the promises they made yesteryear. Instead of addressing promises made over the last 8 years, the minister ignores those commitments, re-promises some of them, and makes new promises, which of course, again, will not be kept. What is most concerning is that this budget for 2024 ignores the realities facing citizens. The brutal, violent crime crisis was mainly ignored. The government fails to understand that there can be no prosperity without safety and security. There can be no prosperity without safety and security. And in this regard, the budget is irrelevant. It's irrelevant because even as I speak today, even as we are here comfortably ensconced in this chamber, talking highfalutin talk about the economy, some innocent citizen will be robbed and murdered. There is a war on the outside. Criminals are at war with innocent citizens whom the government have left for themselves. I say again, there can be no prosperity without safety. Just yesterday, the TTPS said they solved 13 out of every 100 murders. What that means is that 87 murderers out of 100, they are never caught. Government has chosen to bury its head in the sand. While they boast about how to prosper, all we see is how people suffer. The government is no longer in charge. They have ceded control to the criminals. Criminal enterprises flourishing and prospering under this government. How can you say prosper and enjoy when government's mantra is suffer and destroy? For the past 8 years, government has done everything to make the rich richer and the poor poorer. Their policies have been to the disadvantage of the working man and woman. They have destroyed the foreign used car industry, which benefited the working man. They provided forex to their financiers while starving the SMEs and regular citizens into bankruptcy. They passed laws to force citizens to seek control of their money to the banks, who then extort high fees in return. They put VAT on 7,000 food items, which were VAT-free under my government, while concentrating our nation's food and medicine supply into the hands of their financiers through the biased allocation of forex. They have refused to raise the minimum wage to the $25 per hour or above, comfort to the working class and working people. Shamefully, that minor increase in this budget is being celebrated by some businesses who seem relieved that they would not be required by law to pay their workers a livable wage. Security officers must guard the wealth of the rich, while at the same time being unable to feed themselves and their families. The policies of this government are always meant to benefit the fake elites, while in every budget they throw a pittance towards the working man and woman. And again, year upon year, their promises are painful, broken promises. They promised free access to public broadband wireless network in all areas. That has been repeated 5 times in this chamber. 2016, 2017, 2021, 2022, 2023, and today it has not materialized. Typical PNM, promises never materialize. Pension reform, which will benefit so many of our citizens, has been repeated 4 times. 2016, 2020, 2022, 2023, and today, promise has never materialized. They promised subsidizing mortgage loans and low interest rates. That has also been repeated several times. 2016, 2018, 2021, and today, promise never materialized. They promised the reintroduction of a rent-to-own program to assist low-income households, repeated 3 times, 2016, 2017, 2018. Today, promise never materialized. All these broken promises to the working man after 8 years of the most expensive misgovernance our country has ever seen. Did you know, Madam Speaker, that it has cost taxpayers $420 billion since they have taken office, and will cost a further $59.2 billion over the next 12 months. This is almost $500 billion that has been spent, yet they have no achievements tangible to benefit the honest working people. The rage many people feel now, because everyone knows that this government has been captured by the fake elites and the groveling oligarchy. The government are like prisoners of the fake elite and not protectors of the people. Due to this government's inaction, some members of the fake elite funded by narco money have embedded themselves into parts of the economy, thus fueling crime. A large proportion, a large percentage of our economy, mainly the underground economy, is financed by drug money. Our economy has become awash with drug money, fueling violent crime. Only the ignorant refuse to see it. This narco-funded crime is an inflictor of great pain on the population. Madam Speaker, only recently, we saw the murders of 4 innocent, beautiful children. The mother of those children, Anisa Mohammed, said this to reporters. When her 4 precious and most beautiful children were gunned down in their sleep, she said, I never studied hair or shoes or nails, because as we get money, it was for groceries. The 4 Peterkin children, Madam Speaker, innocent children. 3 were minors, 1 was 19. You have seen their photos in the media, children too beautiful for words. Now all Anisa's money has been used to bury her 4 precious and most beautiful children. 4 beautiful children, Madam Speaker. They were tucked in their beds at night, and they were zipped in body bags before sunrise. Many citizens were inconsolable at the sight. We all grieve from afar with this family. Pain happens to humans, we know. The family doesn't have to know me or know us, but I know we hurt along with them. Many people were raging mad. Indeed, Dr. Munilal, MP Munilal, was raging mad because people were not outraged by this tragic and outrageous action. Many people could hardly contain themselves, but there was silence from the eat-a-food oligarchy, for which some in this government pander. Not a word about the murders of these 4 children by wannabe elites who grovel for contracts, who grovel for state briefs, for rents and national awards, whilst at the same time they pontificate to real people with fake lectures of propriety. A whole nation is being kept awake, not by noise, but by thick and dense pain. A whole village in Guanapo can't work, not for lack of motivation, but because there is burning pain every time they move. Many can't eat. Their bellies are bloated with pain and grief. Pain is stabbing and stabbing and stabbing. And as if pain of their children's mass murder was not enough for the parents of the Tiffany children, of the Peterkin children, there was a cruelty of disrespect for their bodies. They were left to decompose. Sean Peterkin, the children's father, said, and I quote, when they bust open the body bag with the children in it, if you see the children, they actually get in bloom, they're rotting, they smell and stink, they stink up the whole building. They come and slaughter my children, now they leave them to rotten. We must remove the pain of the stench of murder. Do any of you know the stench of murder? While I was studying in Jamaica, working, I discovered the horrible scent of murder. I had a little yellow Volkswagen Bug and was driving along in front of the university hospital when I encountered a young man who was shot and lying in the street. I stopped, and with the help of some people, we dragged him into the car. I dropped him off at the hospital. I returned home in shock and fear. I scrubbed that car all evening. The suffocating metallic smell of blood, like rusted iron, was branded in my mind. the gurgling, scraping, and rattling songs from his chest and throat. Does any one of you present have even understand the sight, the smell, the songs of murder? I was so shocked, Madam Speaker, and full of fear, that the sight, smell, and sound of murder have been imprinted in my mind ever since. It has never left me. Too many families on our land, and police officers as well, have gone through similar experiences. And as if the murder of 4 beautiful children was not horror enough for families and communities, as if it was not heartbreaking enough, we have seen another innocent and beautiful child murdered in her sleep just a couple of weeks ago. A beautiful, innocent 13-year-old Andrea Lallan. She went to bed, and in the night, she went from dreaming and warm to cold and dead in a body bag. She went to bed to have dreams of being maybe a great dancer, maybe a singer, maybe a doctor, or just a great human being. Sleep was her escape from the reality that she had just returned from reporting to the police that she was raped. Instead of having sweet dreams, this beautiful, innocent child was murdered in the ongoing saga of the nightmare that is overseen by this government. At 13 years old, brutalized, raped, and murdered, a short, brutal life of poverty and pain. Madam Speaker, excuse me. Her sweet dream became a body bag. Her uncle, a wheelchair-bound paraplegic, was also shot dead. Her father is still fighting for his life. So how can anyone living in this country not honestly believe that the only function of this government is to be handmaidens to the grotesque? The only function of this government is not to function. This is a fact. When will our dreaming, beautiful children stop ending up in body bags? Imagine at 13 years old, after a life of poverty and pain, brutalized, raped, and murdered. Many of you listening do not care because she was not your child. She was not your grandchild. She was not your relative. But be warned that today the rain is falling on the home of the Lallans and the home of the Peterkins, and tomorrow it will fall on yours, because that is the crime scourge in this country. How do you all live with yourselves buying more body bags than book bags for children? The favorite bags of other world leaders are computer satchels and briefcases. Yours are golf bags and body bags. Are you not ashamed that everyone is seeing you doing nothing? This is a government detached from reality, Madam Speaker. I watched on the TV the other night, I think it was TV6, where ministers appeared on a talk show post-budget. And I saw Ministers Al-Rawi and Minister Manning, who from birth lived exceedingly privileged lives, paid for by taxpayers of this country, who knew nothing of the realities of life. They were chosen to speak on working people's issues at the TV6 post-budget forum. How much more detached from reality can this government be? To send a man whose family is collecting hundreds of millions in rent to justify $20.50 and minimum wage. How can this government and their friends justify citizens working for $164? These citizens' lives are paralyzed. This is our paralyzed country. This is our country where tens of thousands of parents sacrifice their personal needs to give their children a fighting chance. And of those thousands of parents, hundreds who are already going without must bury murdered sons and daughters. Ask, why don't you all act to remove the pain these parents feel for their slaughtered sons and daughters? In our country today, there are more murders per year than good local songs. There are more murders per year than bright inventions. There are more murders per year than good paintings. There are more murders per year than concerts. There are more murders per year than gold medals that we win. There are more murders than trophies. Murders made in Trinidad and Tobago are more popular than cultural events, it seems. Murder has become more popular than culture. Indeed, murder and pain every day are the new cultures of Trinidad and Tobago. Blood is our culture. Pain is our culture. Everything is pain. Everywhere is pain. Everybody is in pain. And everybody is in fear. Only some on the other side, or their friends and family, the fake elites in this country, see, hear, and feel no pain. Perhaps it's because they're insulated by 10-ply money and power from office. This paralyzing pain did not fall from the sky. And to say, like the Prime Minister said, that we are a violent society is to think that violence is like pollen. It spreads in the wind. If a child had said that, you would have laughed at them because you think their brains are not yet developed to understand cause and effect. We are not a nation of 5-year-olds. Neither are we a nation of fools. We don't make glib statements like we are a violent society and leave it at that. We identify the problems and the causes and try to find solutions. We know problems have been added to more problems. These have multiplied and then shared. Violent crime, Madam Speaker, is like a giant, terrifying monster. It keeps changing shape. A giant monster of which all we know is paralyzing fear, anxiety, hopelessness, and crippling pain. It was only today, Madam Speaker, that the Honourable Chief Justice talked about the anxiety stemming from the increasing murders. And by the way, Madam Speaker, may I thank the Parliament and your good self for accommodating some of our lawyers to attend the law opening, which was this morning. We want to thank you for that opportunity. I'd intended to go, but other constraints prevented me from so doing. So we want to thank you for that accommodation. So as I move on, I say that the crime is like a monster. It's a monster that can be tackled, however. It is a monster that must be tackled. We must be humble. When offered help, we must take the help. We must be brave. We must be honest. We must always have respect for people. And we have to get serious. You cannot run away from the responsibility to protect citizens. The Minister, in his statement on Monday, did not address any tangible new plans for the current crime crisis. The Prime Minister is the only person in this country who appears to have confidence in the Minister of National Security. The Minister is not even mediocre or average. He is bluntly incompetent. And in being incompetent, the Minister seeks refuge in the claim that he is not responsible for citizens' safety. This is an official admission that a failed government. It represents an abdication by government of the sacred responsibility to protect and defend people and keep them safe. This minister says it's not his duty to keep people safe. And he says that's not his duty. But Minister, you have a statutory constitutional duty which you're also breaching. And that duty, every Minister of National Security since this government came into office has failed in their constitutional duty to file reports in the Parliament pursuant to Section 66D of our Constitution. And so they failed to file. The trafficking in human persons report, very important report, so people could see what's happening, why it's happening, and what's happening. They failed to file that for every year since they came into office in 2015. In some critical reports, as I say, trafficking in persons annual report, the last one laid was in 2015. The administrative report of the Ministry of National Security, last one laid in 2016. This is a constitutional duty. You are breaching the Constitution, the law of the land, the supreme law of the land, by your failure to file these reports in the Parliament. Outstanding reports for the SSA, outstanding reports for the interception of communication, outstanding reports for the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board, Outstanding reports for the Police Service Commission. You have failed to play these pursuant to Section 66 of the Constitution. So if your duty is not to make citizens feel safe, then what is your duty? What is your duty? It is your sacred responsibility to protect and defend people, to keep them safe. If a government cannot provide this legal guarantee of safety and protection for citizens' lives, limbs, families, properties, homes, then that government is no longer a government for the people, that stands by the people. We live in an unprecedented state of emergency with self-imposed curfews. Only the gun-toting bandits and gangs can roam the streets at night as they prey upon innocent citizens. Citizens have been forced to barricade and burglar-proof their homes with higher fences and barbed wire as if living in a prison. And in there, we are not safe with the onslaught of home invasions. Criminals have become so bold-faced and brazen due to government's incompetence and failure that they're coming with blowtorches to cut through the steel burglar proofing. Make no mistake about this. This is a direct result of government repeatedly saying it is not responsible for the safety of citizens. How do you expect criminals to interpret such a statement? How do you expect them to act when government gives them a free pass to attack and terrorize citizens? The minister in his statement on Monday gave not a single new idea or plan as to how government will rescue the population from a nightmare of crime. And yet they have the unmitigated gall and temerity to blame everyone, to blame the opposition, to blame citizens. The fight against crime must be holistic. It must include prevention, detection, conviction, and rehabilitation. In this regard, failing on the part of the minister to present any new tangible crime-fighting initiative, I am prepared to share with you some of our plans for national security. I am still awaiting the courtesy of a reply from the Honourable Prime Minister in response to the letter I sent to him some time ago about crime-fighting proposals, which we shared, and the Prime Minister had undertaken to share their proposals. I thought maybe at first they did not share them because maybe in the budget they were coming to share them. But there are no tangible, no new crime-fighting initiatives, no new ideas. As Anita Hayes has said to me on Monday, just more money, but no ideas and no plans. Some of these plans can be implemented right away to reduce crime. I call on government to consider these initiatives. 1, strengthen a rebranded highway patrol unit. Properly staff the E99 call center. Currently, it is severely understaffed. I am told there are about 12 persons are supposed to be on the switchboard daily, but there are usually less than 3. So citizens are forced to wait for long periods of time, and no one answers. And imagine this call center is for emergency reports of criminal activity. I say reactivate the community comfort patrols, reactivate them now. That will not take you any time. You can do this now. Reactivate the community comfort patrols. Increase and maintain CCTV cameras throughout TMT. What is so hard about that? Every year we come to this parliament, there's always some excuse as to why the CCTV cameras are not up and running. All kinds of Nancy stories. Look, just get it done. We need it done. Get it done. Get it done. Properly support the transnational organized crime unit. It is poorly utilized. It is understaffed. So there are few good results from it. In fact, nobody even hears about this unit anymore, as government failed to equip and utilize it properly. Increase covert operations at our seaports and airports. The complaint is the guns are coming in, the guns are... Look, don't you point to me, you know. You will have your turn to speak, member.
Yeah, tell us.
You will have your turn to speak. Warn him. increase covert operations at the seaports and airports. There is always the complaint that the guns and the drugs are coming in through the ports. So why are we not increasing the operations there? Why are we going up to the US to try to use their system to stop their manufacturing from manufacturing guns? Enhance and fully implement the National Operations Center. You have disabled that. Install security electronic billboards. Provide electronic data access in all police vehicles.
Simple.
Integrate a fully computerized crime stats and reporting system to include computerized vehicle maintenance and service records, computerization of all police stations and provision of internet access via the National Operations Center, equipping every police vehicle with GPS and link back to the NOC, indoor and outdoor shooting ranges for all the protective services, a training swimming pool facility to train all arms of the protective service, police, fire, Coast Guard, and the Army, a simulation training theater for the TTPS, proper health and fitness facilities for the TTPS, provide customer service and public relations support for the TTPS,
Simple.
standardize and acquire fit-for-purpose vehicles for the TTPS. There's some other areas that we can go, and I'm doing this deliberately because you have given us no plans, tangible, to fight crime. None whatsoever. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Many of these we had in train when we brought serious crimes in this country down to the lowest in decades. But when you came in, you dismantled, you allowed others to lapse, and what has happened? Crime has escalated and continued to escalate. We propose stand your ground laws. Stand your ground laws.
Stand your ground.
I heard on the social media somewhere where they're saying, gangs are now saying, I think it's in one of the newspapers today, gangs are saying, knock it on the police. Well, I say knock it on the criminals. We have to knock it on the criminals. We have to knock it on the gangs. This is what we do, so we need to stand your ground laws to give people the laws and the means to protect themselves and their families. Create the offense of home invasion. Give an allowance for the right to bear arms or modifications to the current legislation to make acquiring firearms by law-abiding citizens easier. Change legislation to make gated communities easier. Increase the complement of municipal police. Introduce police officers full-time in all schools. Restructure the Ministry of National Security. We've said this before. Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Justice. Increase the retirement age for the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force to align with other arms of the protective services. I have been saying this for years. We had begun the work in 2015 when we were in office. When this government came in, it scrapped it. I saw last night on the news that the TTDF is calling for this exact measure to increase the retirement age. You know why? Because they're losing so many skilled and experienced persons because they retire so early. So this is something that we will call on. And it doesn't take much to make that happen. It is not a long, lengthy process that can be done very quickly.
Very quickly.
Diploma and undergraduate, postgraduate degrees in policing to be implemented for recruits combined with a police apprenticeship program. Pre-trial detention and bail reform. Individual risk and financial assessments. Minimum security detention centers. Law to prevent incarceration of non-violent drug offenders. Ankle bracelets and house arrest. By the way, what has happened with these ankle bracelets? We had put the law into place since we were there. What has happened with the ankle bracelets? What has happened? Give state support for children of incarcerated persons so that they end up criminals as well. Establish a fund for children who have lost one or both parents to crime so that they're taken care of. Seriously revamp the witness protection program. When we we met in 2016, that first meeting with the Honorable Prime Minister and his team, the UNCT met. This was number 1 on our list to revamp the witness protection program. So that persons who have to go to court, maybe the young girl who was a victim of rape, after she reported the crime of rape, she was murdered, maybe this would have helped to protect her life. Revamp the witness protection program. Construct a forensic science complex and training facility at the UWI-DB campus. You have the place shut down, closed down. You have a state-of-the-art campus there. Put a forensic science center and training facility. Up to today, we don't have a proper forensic science center, even though we've been hearing it from the other side over and over again.
Sure.
Provide personal licensed firearms to all active TTPS officers and prison officers. Enforcement of the drug and liquor laws against minors. Enforces zero-tolerance approach to any physical violence in schools. Any student physically attacking another student must be immediately removed from school and only be allowed to return after completing neurodiagnostic testing and a proper counseling program approved by the state. In the interim, the student can keep up with the lessons via virtual learning. What we see in schools now is more than just bullying. We are seeing violent crimes being committed and the emergence of gang cultures in our schools. Review the legislation for the allowance of marijuana use. There's an exponential increase in the marijuana usage and addiction among teens and young adults. Due to the absence of state agency oversight and control of supply, users are smoking marijuana laced with cocaine, illegally imported. And then we wonder, why the crime levels are so high. My government gave this country's youth laptops so they could learn. This government gave them marijuana, legalized marijuana. Installed a task force to address the imminent arrival and use of fentanyl. It is coming if it's not already here. Review legislation to enable citizens to hire private attorneys representing their interests at hearings for party and bar license. The current system is corrupted. Legislation on mandatory cut-off times for all public events requiring dancehall license that are not held within an enclosed building. Exceptions to be made during the carnival season. The other side has been talking about this, about the noise levels for so long coming out of these events. I know the MP for St. Augustine is always having numerous complaints about noise pollution out of these kinds of places. Carry out a performance assessment of social projects in national security. Restructure global social programs that have become gang and criminal activity havens. Perform a short-term assessment to identify the scale of involvement of illegal immigrants in criminal activity, so a comprehensive plan can be developed from this data. There are some other measures. I continue because crime is the #1 issue in this country. Measures targeted at children and young persons. There are many social and educational programs to assist to help empower our youth to reach their fullest potential.
Madam Speaker, 53, standing order 53, I'm being disturbed.
Yes, constantly talking.
Minister of Finance, please, let's comply with standing order.
Madam Speaker, for everything is a joke. For them it's a joke. This is serious business. People are being murdered. And you are laughing. It's the same way the minister laughed when he said you raised gas so many times and nobody rioted. Do you remember that? Yes. They have no care or concern. This is serious business we engaged in this parliament. And so I continue. Many social programs, educational programs that exist to help empower youth to reach their fullest potential and to guide them away from crime. I remind of the Higher Education Loan Program, the MIC craft programs, The Helping Youth Prepare for Employment program was commonly known as HYPE. The Multi-Sector Skills Training program, commonly known as MUST. And my MP to my left, MP Lee, knows of many of these because at one time he was the head of the MIC.
Yep.
On-the-job training, OJT. Several high-tech and advanced skills training program. The retraining program for displaced workers. The military-led youth program, MILAT I think it was.
Yep.
Apprenticeship program and reorientation training. YTEP, Metal Industries Company Limited. National Skills Development Programs and the Youth Academy Training. I strongly recommend increasing the financing and monitoring of these programs to keep our young people occupied, educated, and away from life of crime. At the same time, in our schools, all schools should have the full complement of required deans of discipline, security officers, schools safety officers. We had launched, Madam Speaker, the first national student hotline to provide professional counseling to students with confidentiality. Today I ask, what is the status of this? And this program should be reinforced. We also established a Circle of Hope where students would have weekly special sessions to speak with trained teachers on issues they may have. Again, we need to reinforce this. Government must ensure staffing the full complement of student support services, which constitutes guidance counselors, guidance officers, and school social workers with educational, behavioral, and clinical psychologists looking after our children in need. We had implemented the Retirees Adolescent Partnership Program, RAP, a community-oriented program that utilizes the skills and experiences of retired persons to aid and supervise low school performance and out-of-school adolescents between the ages of 12 and 16. Again, I say, what is the status of the RAP? And this needs to be reinforced. We implemented after-school homework and study centers, dialect teacher program, providing free help in math and English for SEA students, and math, English, and integrated science for CSEC students at no cost to them or their parents, courtesy Ministry of Education and TSTT. What is the state of this program? Introduce proper and continuous testing and neurodiagnostic of children to test for special needs. We got some submissions, Madam Speaker, in our pre-budget consultations from the Autistic Society, which I'll share in a short while. Fill out all teacher vacancies. All vacancies. And strictly monitor teacher absenteeism. Introduce a financial incentive program for dedicated and high-performing teachers based on the students' end-of-term exam results across all levels, so teachers are also given an incentive. Introduce the anonymous anti-bullying app for students so they can make reports. Introduce parent patrols in all schools, where a parent of each enrolled student must spend at least one full day at their child's school to help maintain discipline with deans, teachers, and student support services. I say all students must undergo free, mandatory, annual physical and medical screening by state-approved public and private medical doctors to examine for physical abuse, substance abuse, sexual abuse, malnutrition, and diseases. After-school meals for children who apply to be supplied by the school feeding program, and after-school meals I'm talking about, not just in school, but after school. A daily multivitamin supplement could also be provided with meals because malnutrition is a main cause of poor learning. We had a suite of government community programs. Some good programs are community mediation services, free counseling sessions, parental support groups for single parents and victims of family violence, peer mediation, parenting workshop to address parent-child conflict, parental rejection, parental communication, proper parental supervision, and identification of criminal behaviors in children. I say we fund faith-based weekly community mentoring and guidance programs. Each community we know has a place of worship, which should be open every day after school, 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. perhaps, Saturdays and weekends, Sundays, and they can act as community homework and activity centers. The government can then provide funding for meals and student supplies and pay a stipend to staff who can be drawn from the congregations, from the community elders, from volunteer teachers and parents. This way we can integrate the parent, the school, the community, and religious bodies into children's lives. We have always heard the expression, it takes a village to raise a child. We have just completed the local government elections. And may I say congratulations to all our councillors and aldermen throughout Trinidad and Tobago. After that election, Madam Speaker, the government is now a minority government. Some say a lame duck government. They lost in their backyard in Tobago, and they lost in Trinidad. And the next thing they will lose is the and. So they will lose all of Trinidad and Tobago. So through the Ministry of Local Government, I know government has been talking a lot about local government reform. Here is something we can do to help the communities through local government. All councillors could oversee the formation of a community support council in each polling division of the electoral district. I suggest this is a manner to do it, as the boundaries are already delineated, and the demographic data is already present. These community support councils will act like the old village councils to provide guidance, mentorship, and support to children, young adults, and parents, and will also serve as a direct link with police and government representatives. And then prominent persons of good character within the community can come forward to support the councils within the area. The aim, again, is to integrate citizens better, prevent marginalization, encourage communities to directly affect, monitor, and regulate their development. These community councils should also be funded with a stipend from government. We will share other detailed plans at the consultations whenever that may be. We also have many other detailed plans which we can share during these consultations and with all willing stakeholders. Again, I call upon government to prioritize anti-crime measures, crime fighting strategies, and policies. So I said before, the crime is like a monster. We on this side can address the monster that is crime, but the monster problem is fed by two sides of the same coin. On one side, this government uses all the mental energy to create selfish policies and budgets, to focus on designing themselves and the fake elites into a rich and powerful in-group. On the other side of this coin, the real working people are neglected. They feel that life is unfair under this government. They see that everything has fallen apart. They see no hope. This is not the quality of life that people want for themselves. Hundreds of thousands of citizens feel their potential is being wasted. They feel that opportunity is only for the rich and infamous. They feel this government does not hear or speak to them respectfully. I repeat, as I began, all these measures in this budget, there can be no prosperity without safety and security. Madam Speaker, after 8 years of serial deception, what can be done? How must the giant monster of loss and grief and hopelessness and pain be fought? The government must do what the UNC has been doing for years. We in the UNC talk directly to people. We are the Working People's Party. Excuse me, ma'am. We talk directly to people. We're the Working People's Party, putting people first because we listen to the people. The PNM has their consultations in the Hyatt, I believe. And some tell me you have to pay to gain entry. Well, this year they didn't have any. They're having a post-budget exercise, but that's not a consultation. They're going to talk down to the people in a meeting. This government is based in the heart. They only care to listen to those who can afford entry. That is the arrogance of this government. People must go to them, whereas we in the UNC go to the people. We go to where they are in their communities. We go to their schools, their community centers, the church halls, the recreation grounds, and we listen to them. We are in their backyards, their front yards, homes and workplaces. For the past weeks, that's what we have done. We have engaged people in budget consultations nationwide in the regional corporations. We humble ourselves and listen to the people's dreams, aspirations, and needs to learn what kinds of lives they want. We do more than listen, Madam Speaker. We help them formulate the nature of problems and find solutions. This is the UNC. This is what we have been doing every week. Simply, the government doesn't know about the people's pain and hardship, and some think they just don't care. That is the worst part. People think they just don't care. Even areas represented by the PNM, both at the local level and the parliamentary level, citizens complain not one government official or one rep has visited them to ask their views about the budget. Not even one, Madam Speaker. They have not had a single consultation with their supporters or otherwise. This is why this government's budgets are so anti-people. They don't take the people into account at all. Not their experiences, not their points of view, not their hopes, not their dreams. Government rams policies, cuts and oppression down the throats of people, and doesn't think twice about the pain and the hardship and suffering they cause. The UNC is the voice of the people. I will now put on the Hansard recommendations from the groups and the individuals who respectfully answered our requests for consultation. We owe them a duty to let their voices be heard in the seat of our democracy. I begin first of all. Time will not permit to give all their recommendations, but with your permission, we will post their entire recommendations on social media. I will attempt as best as I can to summarize, paraphrase recommendations made by the various organizations. I begin with the paraphrase recommendations of the Tobago Chamber through Mr. Martin George, and I thank the Chamber and Mr. George for sending in their written submissions. 1. Immediate and unconditional repeal of the Foreign Investment Act to facilitate the inflow of foreign direct investment. The act, they say, is an absurdity because it prevents what we need, scarce forex and dwindling FDI. 2, crime and security. Place vehicle scanners at both ports of Port of Spain and Tobago, along with sniffer dogs and undercover officers on the ferry. Officers should have a list of names and photographs of wanted criminals who may come to try to hide out in Tobago. On a national level, they respectfully believe that simply increasing the number of police recruits and throwing more money at the TTPS appear insufficient to deal holistically with the menace of crime and criminality plaguing the nation. In this regard, they recommend that the Minister and government introduce legislation to create a Tobago Regional Police Force in much the same way as their municipal police officers in the Trinidad regional corporations. They further propose the establishment of an enhanced CPEP-ERP program, not just for Tobago, but nationally, and these programs be restructured and revamped to create full-time, whole-day employment in a revived and reinvigorated agriculture sector. 4, inter-island transport. They state that the air bridge by Caribbean Airlines is an essential service and ought to be given the necessary funding and resources to make it more efficient and effective. They also propose that there be a second cargo vessel to assist on the Tobago run. 5, duty-free, VAT-free zone. They propose that Tobago should be made a duty-free, VAT-free, exclusive economic zone, similar to what obtains in Panama. I want to thank Mr. Martin again at the Chamber for their submissions, and I take pleasure in putting their voice on the Hansard in this House. We also received oral submissions and written submissions from AmCham. In this regard, I want to thank Mr. Stuart Franco, Mr. Nirad Tiwari, Mr. Stephanie Picari, who represented AmCham. They presented a 27-page document, comprehensive document of recommendations. Again, time will not permit me to put all on the record today. Again, I will paraphrase them. Suggestions from AmCham for stimulating growth in the short and medium term. 1. Develop a progressive economic development fund with an independent board to mobilize private capital by providing future tax credits over 3 to 5 years for expenditure in this fund, similar to the art and culture and tax allowance or sports sponsorship for taxes. Similar to the art and culture tax allowance or sport sponsorship tax allowance. Widen the tax net by enforcing the existing tax laws for non-compliant businesses and bringing more people into the tax net by December 2023, but make it clear that no penalties for past periods will be applied. 3. Incentivize venture capital and private equity by amending regulations to allow institutional and private investors to invest a portion of their capital in such funds. I continue with the recommendations of AmCham. Consider allocating less than 5% of the Heritage Fund for investing in private equity as an investment asset class, alongside the private sector and the state in revenue-generating projects and diversification-centric investments based on transparent evaluation and investment criteria. 5. Greenlight approvals for all existing projects awaiting state land, sales, transfers, land leases, operating permits, and construction permits once the State Board or Recovery Committee has approved these. 6. The government should settle its debt to private companies because many are struggling to obtain positive cash flow. You have to vote for me. Oops, sorry. So businesses are crying out. They're suffering and struggling because of cash flow, thereby reducing the very thing you want, their tax contribution. Articulate and share a comprehensive energy sector strategy that addresses the entire value chain for the monetization of our nation's hydrocarbon resources and transition to renewable sources of energy and fuel. Government seems dependent on only on the hydrocarbon sector. 8, develop a nearshoring strategy for Trinidad and Tobago. Recommendations for immediate focus and action. Focus on information technology enabled services. The government must develop a deliberate strategy for nearshoring to fulfill a national objective of job creation opportunities with ITES as phase 1 and robotics process automation, software development, ICT platforms and services, energy engineering services, education, training and manufacturing in phase 2. 3, implement a national task force with a specialized team, budget and mandate around a 5-year national strategy for the development of Trinidad's nearshoring industry. Formal engagement of the multilaterals during the strategy development is required to secure technical and financial support for implementation. 5, NES should be around quality of labor, pool versus quantity. Develop and promote higher value added nearshoring segments. 6, combined and collaborative government efforts and initiatives to create industry presence and to build strong support for human capital. I take pleasure again in putting some of AmCham's recommendations on the Hansard record. We also received oral submissions from the Joint Labour Movement, as well as a written document, written submissions. And they propose as follows, and again we thank them for their contributions. They were Mr. Ozzy Warwick, General Secretary, JTAM, Michael Anisette, General Secretary, NATOC, Ermin Dibik Mead, President General, CAG-WTU, Robert Benassier, President, IGSWU, Gerard Gordon, President, POA, Prisons, Idley Stewart, President, TTRNA, from the Nurses Association, David Forbes, General Secretary, TTPWU, Cassandra Timothy, General Secretary, AWU, Akiba Wilson, Assistant General Secretary, CAG-WTU, Francis Sylvan, Senior Trustee, SWUTT, Benin Mohammed, Deputy Treasurer, FSA. Ma'am, I take the opportunity to put the names on the record because we truly appreciate that they gave up their time, of their energy and their efforts to bring suggestions to the forefront to make a better Trinidad and Tobago. Their recommendations include increase the minimum wage to at least $30 an hour, reduce fuel prices, no NIB penalty for retiring at age 60, continue to pay the NIS retirement benefit at age 60, create decent jobs for young people, and strengthen collection mechanisms instead of punishing persons for retiring at age 60. No property tax at this time. Labor Economic Alternative Plan, LEAP 2024. In this budget, they say the government should provide a control and transformational stimulus package with fiscal injection of 3% of the GDP to be activated annually over the next 3 years. This financing should be used to invest in 4 areas: agriculture, infrastructure, expansion of energy products, special projects in manufacturing, maritime, and tourism. With respect to monetary policy, they suggest establishment of an industrial development fund to finance a comprehensive industrial policy. They propose that there be wage-led growth policy, should be embarked upon. With respect to the petrol refinery, JTAM strongly recommends the conclusion of the sale of Guaracara Refining Company Limited, Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited terminal to Patriotic Energies Services Company Limited. With respect to the steel plant, the Labour movement suggests that the steel plant be restarted and then transition to ecologically sustainable systems. They also propose that trade unions actively participate in a just transition in Trinidad and Tobago. To ensure decent work, protection for the vulnerable, programs should target those in need. There should be a proper debate on the approach to address global decarbonization and the solar and economic needs of the people. Maritime industry, they suggest, ship repairs can be developed and used for apprenticeship programs, giving youth opportunities to learn the skill for this industry. Health, they suggest nursing and midwifery personnel being the backbone of the healthcare system, that there should be retention strategies rolled out to strengthen our healthcare system in this regard. With respect to housing, the trade union movement has developed the skills and knowledge in constructing and delivering adequate, affordable housing. The NUGFW Construction Company can partner with the government to build affordable houses for their members. They speak about Labour's multi-purpose cooperatives. Through NATOC, the Labour movement has embarked on a development program of a multi-purpose cooperative, including a food cooperative. Government is requested to lend support and assistance to this venture by allocating a parcel of land to construct a warehouse and headquarters of the NATUC. They talk about the establishment of an industrial policy. There is a need, they say, to establish an industrial policy team which include government, labor, and business. In terms of tax incentives for trade unions, they propose the transfer of generational wealth for working people, businesses, and stamp duty exemptions. No T&TEC rate increases. Participatory budgeting. Participatory budgeting is a democratic process where citizens make direct decisions about how government money is spent in their community by identifying and prioritizing public spending projects. Again, thank the members of the labor movement, and I take pleasure in putting their suggestions here on the Hansard record. The Greater Tunapuna Chamber of Industry and Commerce also sent us written submissions. We thank them through their president, Mr. Ramon Gregorio, for recommendations which I'll share today. They would like to see focus placed in the national budget to reduce operational costs for SMEs, to address access to finance, mainly in foreign exchange, to support growth within the sector, and incentives to get involved in new markets. They would like to see focus placed on, one, crime. Again, almost every group I'm seeing, whether it was in the open-air consultations or in written submissions or in oral submissions, the issue of crime. Boost community involvement with public-private partnerships. Tax incentives should be presented to the private sector to increase this activity. Two, innovation. Incentivize innovation to foster SMEs, to uptrain, as well as implement ISO management systems that can bring about greater access to foreign markets. This is against the backdrop. Thank you. This is against the backdrop of facilities and grants to assist to encourage exporting. Finance. They would like greater access to foreign currency, another burning issue in the country, that can aid SMEs with imports. As the central trade hub of the Caribbean, many SMEs import goods, they add on value, and then they export, thereby also bringing in forex. SMEs now are trying to survive on credit cards, and as we all knew recently, Republic Bank had cut the credit card limits, so they are in a bad way, these small businesses. VAT returns. They propose replacing VAT with a standard sales tax. Now, Madam Speaker, this is a very interesting concept and one that I am inclined to consider. In the United States, you go in and you pay your sales tax. You don't have all the paperwork. With the VAT, you pay the VAT and then it's held for years. Your money is has been kidnapped by the government because you don't get the refunds time over time and your company is starved, in a sense, of that money. So it is something I would ask the minister to seriously consider, a sales tax to replace the VAT. 5, this is again from the Tunapuna group, agriculture. Incentives to the private sector to adopt community projects to grow and farm. This focus would be to provide opportunities for youths through training and incentives to encourage investment. Again, I thank the members of the Greater Tunapuna group and Mr. Ramon Gregorio, who provided us with these recommendations, and we take pleasure in placing it on this record. We also received written submissions from the Autistic Society of Trinidad and Tobago. We thank this society and Ms. Teresima Siunarine for their recommendations. They claim that families experience problems receiving a diagnosis and high cost of psychoeducational assessment. Madam, let me declare my conflict of interest in this matter. I am not reading this because of that conflict, but I will declare it. My granddaughter is on the autistic spectrum, and many of these things that the society shared with me, I am not a member of the society. Many of it I am familiar with. because I know the hardships that the families go through. So they say that they have real problems receiving diagnosis and the high cost of psychoeducational assessments. The earliest appointment a parent was given, they tell me, at one whole clinic for diagnosing a child, was 2026. 2026, 3 years away. They say that if ASTT is to continue providing services, they must get help for more qualified staff, sufficient funding. Currently, they pay salaries to 10 staff members at 2 centers, Dabadie and Point Fortin. The society is thankful for the subvention from the Ministry of Health, but it covers only part of the cost. Fundraising and donations are important to supplement costs. And yes, of course, we all do that for various activities, but they're asking for a reconsideration of the subvention. Some students who are accepted in school require a teacher's aid and cannot get one for their child to appropriately access education. Each family should have access to suitable ICT devices and internet Wi-Fi connection. But again, we can't give our children who are not on the syndrome or challenged children, can we give these challengers who really need these devices. They need help repaying property tax and payment of utilities and internet. They only have 2 centers. And it's estimated, I can't remember the exact number, but there's a large number of children on this syndrome, on this spectrum, sorry. They need a building for the Point 14 Center because right now they're paying rent for it. They say it's important for local government to coordinate assistance with NPOs and civil society organizations so that persons will get emergency help regarding funding and provided hampers. They say that an individualized approach is required since specific needs must be addressed. Many of their families are questioning the disability assistance grant form for children with disabilities under 18 years. Children diagnosed in the level 1 of the spectrum are not considered eligible for this grant. However, they also have a lifelong disability and require support, services, and therapies. But because they are on level 1, they are not eligible for the grant. I call on government to reconsider this position. The Ministry of Social Development. Special arrangements for children with disabilities should be made so that they have access to therapy sessions. And they may also require things like dental care and other services, in-home services, support to be included. Visits by qualified personnel should be available to make sure children on the spectrum are being well looked after. TNT must address poverty. It should be done at the community level. The media has reported many examples of persons and children with disabilities being abused and dying because of domestic poverty issues. ASTT says they provide hampers mainly to families in need and persons in the environs of their centers. They suggest a government-coordinated community response during times of crisis as being essential. In addition to providing needs, the community response will protect vulnerable families from persons who take advantage of others during crises. The society contributes to the Green Fund, but they say they have seen no evidence that it helps their families. As such, they would like funding to set up their own agri-project so that they can sell produce, grow their own produce, and sell produce, and so become more sustainable. They say that they can then set up grow boxes or even a hydroponic garden that will help them to earn revenue in the long run. The business community, they suggest be given incentives to assist employees with disabilities and registered NPOs. To reduce poverty, the business community can assist families in learning entrepreneurial skills or even setting up micro-enterprises. At this point, as I thank the ASTT for their recommendations and place it on the record, I also want to congratulate Maya Nanan from Claxtonby, who was awarded Commonwealth Young Person of the Year 2023 for her inspirational work within the autistic community. She's a daughter of Dr. Radhika Mahes, who was recently awarded the Shakonia Medal Silver for her life-changing work as a founder of Support Autism TTT. We say congratulations to them. Do you have a time check, please? The business community should be given incentives. I'm sorry, I said that already, ma'am. Moving along, SWAHA board and executive also sent us written recommendations through Pandit Ishwar Madhu Maharaj, the Secretary General of the board. That board suggests the following: local government and social development. Increase allocations to local government to facilitate effective infrastructural works and the efficient delivery of essential services to all communities. Increase engagement with NGOs, NPOs for social development programs. 2, on the issue of crime. Focus on developing a crime action plan to reduce serious crimes, including the introduction of nationwide CCTVs, drones to patrol borders, and automation of ports and customs. Seek foreign consultants to plan and execute crime plans. With respect to VAT and other taxes and duties, remove VAT on essential foods and everyday pharmacy items. Remove duties and taxes on baby food and products. Remove the 7% online purchase tax. With respect to education, GATE, allow funding for programs with a need or future need, and do not limit persons who have already benefited. Expansion and upgrade of the textbook management program to include greater availability of e-textbooks. Good, I agree. Complete construction of unfinished primary, secondary, and ECC schools. Legislative agenda: revisit procurement legislation to promote transparency and accountability. Proclaim legislation on data privacy, data protection, cybersecurity, and full proclamation on the Electronic Transaction Act. Property tax legislation to be reviewed in the context of current unresolved issues. Taxation, automation of BIR, including cashless payments and refunds. Revisit the tiered approach to PAYE. Tax incentives for non-institutional investors to increase participation in the securities market. 7, micro, small, and medium enterprises. Public-private equity fund or venture capital fund. Expand NEDCO funding. Government guarantee for MSMEs loans. Reintroduction of the Fair Share program. Further incentivize SME listing on the TT Stock Exchange. Again, I want to thank the SWAHA organization for their suggestions, some of which we totally agree with, and I offer for the consideration of government. We turn now, Madam Speaker, to the recommendations from real people on the ground. These organizations had sent their recommendations, and let's see what are some of the recurrent themes that came out from the consultations held by our councillors and aldermen and MPs throughout the country. Agriculture. Danny Rogers highlighted the pressing issues affecting crop reduction. Currently, Nestle is importing milk, and poultry production has hit a low point. He has recommended for the government to present a comprehensive plan for the agricultural sector. We totally agree. Crime. Selvon Mitchell from Montrose suggested linking all existing residential and commercial security cameras in Chabonas into an overarching security system that systematically covers areas in collaboration with artificial intelligence to identify criminals as they move from place to place. Culture. Banjela, the 2020 Calypso Young King of TNT, recommended establishment of partnerships with educational institutions to integrate cultural education into the curriculum, fostering a series of cultural pride and identity from an early age. Education. Jasmine Ali recommended the completion of the construction of the Persad Primary School. Students of that school currently have been housed at a community center for the past 5 years. Healthcare for kids, disability grants comes up again. Patricia Lizama asks for the wait time and lack of beds at the nation's hospitals to be addressed. She expressed concerns with the funding given to senior citizens and persons with disabilities. I'm sorry. Water. Thank you. I have some people concerned, madam. Thank you. Thank you, MP. Concerns about funding given to senior citizens and persons with disabilities. And Patricia recommended that the funding for differently abled children be increased, as it doesn't cover their medical expenses. Kristen Townsend of Mayaro revealed that residents have to go to Sali Grande or San Fernando to access hospital care, and recommended the upgrade of the Mayaro Health Facility. Dr. Narendra Rupnarayan spoke about the need to improve the quality of health care provision and quantity. He suggested maternal health education be part of the curriculum. Legal firearm access. Mr. Rajendra Singh mentioned difficulties in obtaining an FUL firearm user's license and recommended that the process be made easier. Infrastructure. Every consultation nationwide, people highly and rightly complain about the state of our roads and bridges. Christopher Jackman from the OWTO has emphasized that the shutting down of petroleum not only meant that we no longer produce fuel for domestic consumption, but also did not produce bitumen. So we now have to import bitumen to fix our roads. Bitumen is necessary for paving roads. So when we shut down petroleum, not only did we lose the goose that laid the golden egg, we lost also all the products that the refinery produced. So all the refined products, we now have to pay for them, bring them from outside, including the bitumen. Residents nationwide have complained about the dilapidated state of recreation grounds nationwide. And we have received serious concerns that similar to the NIB fund, that is now collapsing upon itself, not because of what the minister tells us, but because they have mismanaged the NIB and the fund. And they're doing the same thing or similar thing is being done to the Petrotrin pension plan. Mr. Gulcharan, a former employee of Petrotrin, raised concerns about the status of the pension plan, which has been steadily deteriorating since the company shut down. He recommended, and others from the JTM also recommended, that government should allocate money to bolster the Petrotrin pension plan and for the minister to provide an update on what has been happening with this pension plan. The workers are exceedingly concerned about this Petrotrin pension plan. Another area in our consultation, pre-deal larceny. Many farmers raise this problem, and it really deserves special mention. The farmers suggested that government provide the pre-deal larceny unit with vehicles, proper equipment, and staffing. It is all, but what is it? It's almost non-existent to provide the farmers with the help they need. Nigel Moses from Arriva suggested the need for a proper payroll system in Trinidad and Tobago, which can help with the judicial system to ensure crime goes down, and this is in the area of prisoner rehabilitation. Mr. Kenneth Rambasal from Tunapuna wants to see more recreation grounds illuminated and upkept as there is a need for more persons to be out there in sport and exercise and to increase family bonding. Scholarships. Emerson Shady of Superior requested increased allocations to provide more scholarships for poor and disadvantaged students. This was a government that decreased the 500 scholarship that was based on meritocracy, based on how well you perform, took that away, reduced it, and instead now gives bursaries. We don't know what is the criteria or how is waving a P&M card that you get these bursaries. But before, it was based on meritocracy. So we're asking again, people are asking, more scholarships for poor and disadvantaged students. Special needs citizens. Helen Narayan Singh from Arima recommended more special needs schools and an increase in special needs grants. This is a serious matter in the country. Very, very serious matter. Tourism. In Sadi Grande and Mayaro, residents recommended tourism development along the East Coast. They requested that the East Coast be developed to become a premier tourist destination in the Caribbean. Water. This is another burning issue. Citizens all over the country have complained of the lack of water and the fact that they not only does the government expect them to pay bills and not receive the service, but government is looking now to raise water rates. You know, in my own constituency, I received a petition of about 168 persons fairly recently. They have had no water in their taps for months, no water. And this is not special to the constituency of Superior. It is something that is happening throughout the Southland and elsewhere, of no water in the taps. MP Padarat, who shadows the portfolio of public duties, will speak more on those matters, but I think it's important to highlight it. And again, the minister makes these glib, vague promises which never materialize. Promises never materialize. So let's see what happens with this. And let's see if you're really moving to raise water rates and tea and tech rates. So, residents have complained you're not getting pipe-borne water for almost 50 days. Some citizens call for the CEO of Wassa to be removed. Youth unemployment. Ms. Ambika Gosain highlighted her concerns about employment for youth regarding the oversaturation of the on-the-job program. She highlighted that the waiting period for a first interview can take years. Earlier, I spoke about using the OJT program to help in the fight against crime. Here we are seeing people saying to get an interview can take years. She recommended that the government address the issue. So I've gone through all of these, and I'm saying if government had consulted with people before this budget, government would have had an accurate list of priorities to impact areas of greatest concern positively. That's what we did when we were in government. When you talk to people, they will often give you very useful solutions. Indeed, citizens are very creative and informed. Many of them came to these consultations well prepared, some with pages of ideas to share. And that is the tragedy of this government. They do not harness the potential, the experience, the ideas, or the greatness of a society. That is the attitude of that government. We on this side are showing the country that our philosophy and practices are different, and the way we govern is participatory. People have given the government endless chances for cooperative participation, but government fails them every time. Year after year, this government comes to this house and delude themselves and the country, or try to delude the country, that the country is doing well, that the population is doing well, but citizens know the truth. It has cost our citizens, as I said before, $420 billion since they've taken office, and will cost a further $59.209 billion. This will be, as I tell you, almost $500 billion. This year, the minister themed the budget, building capacity for diversification and growth. Building capacity for diversification and growth. I wonder if you do a word search and try to find out how many times the word diversification is found in this document. I see the minister giving us his usual grin. How many times is the word found? But even more important, what is inside of that budget for diversification? There's absolutely nothing. There is nothing to diversify the economy, absolutely nothing. But zero measures during almost 4 hours about diversify when he teams his budget. Why does the minister do this, madam? Every year, every budget theme is not reflected in the actual budget statement. You know, when I was preparing, I've gone through every single one over the past years. And they are all nothing in the statement. It's fluff inside there, I'm being told, but nothing in the statement to substantiate what the theme says. And once again, it has happened again. Nothing about any new revenue streams. In fact, the minister said that they're going to still be heavily dependent on the energy sector, which is a very myopic view in developing the economy and growing jobs and so on. Okay. Let's look at energy prices, because the minister says we're going to be very stuck on energy. We will still be tied to the energy sector. The minister spent the first few minutes of presentation, as always, trying to convince us that he inherited a country in crisis caused by low energy prices. But he was so good that he was able to reverse the trend and move towards growth. Nothing is further from the truth. Nothing. Indeed, the energy prices collapsed when we were in government, and we were able to hold the economy together. So when the minister now boasts that low energy prices in 2014-15, minister, you were nowhere there. Your government was not in government in 2014-2015, that you had to manage those low energy prices. I said nothing is further from the truth. The minister gave us two other areas of challenges that distracted him from achieving the growth. One was COVID-19. And let us be fair and remember, this government crashed the economy long before COVID. Long before COVID. And the second, I think he called them headwinds. So one headwind was a COVID. So that, the trajectory of growth was deflected. And the second was the Great War, the Russia-Ukraine war. So the minister complains that the low energy prices was something bad and that he inherited and it was hard for him and so on. And then the Ukraine war, he says the high energy prices now deflected him as well. So what is the truth? There was a crisis with the low energy prices, minister, and then you tell us there was a crisis when you got high energy prices. But that crisis is the one that gave you the extra money they came to put into the accounts to have a surplus. It was the high energy prices because of the war. And it was nothing to do, Madam Speaker, with what the minister or his government did. There was no intervention on their part. There was absolutely no intervention. And I challenge the minister to tell me what intervention there was that caused us to get that higher revenue and that surplus in the economy. So when we look at our macroeconomic indicators, again, nothing is further from the truth about the growth trajectory the minister is speaking about that he and his government is responsible for. I mention again, there can be no prosperity without economic security as well. And we will see from the data that this government has decimated the economy. We have no economic security in this country. Let's look at some of the macroeconomic indicators. And I'm using the government's own data. I'll come back to that in a moment when we talk about the National Statistical Institute promised how much every single budget year after year. Again, P&M promises never materialize. Let's look at the GDP to start with. This government's anti-people decision-making undermined, decimated our economy, so much so that the real GDP collapsed by $10 billion within the first year of the P&M taking office. So don't cry crocodile tears about COVID. You crashed the economy long before COVID. GDP collapsed by $10 billion within the first year of the PNM taking office, and the country has not recovered to date. When we look at per capita GDP, which grew to $140,000 during my tenure, that has now collapsed to $110,200, a loss of 21% of real value, GDP, per capita GDP. And yet the minister comes here and continues to boast of how well he has managed the economy. Well, bring us the metrics. Bring us the metrics of how well you've done, because the metrics, the data is clearly showing you have crushed and decimated the economy. Bring the data. Instead of taking the country forward, the government policies have regressed the broad-based distribution of the economy back to the 2006 levels of per capita GDP. The data is obvious. The transformation that the minister boasted about last year was a polarization of the economy away from a broad-based, multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary structure to one in which only the factored few mega businesses survive. That was your work, Minister, your government. When the minister boasts of the economy growing, take it with a handful of salt, and instead ask him how much the economy has contracted since his government took over the Treasury in 2015. I am proud that my government has the distinction of the highest average national output in our country's history. Let us look at another macroeconomic indicator, foreign exchange. Forex. If the government had continued UNC's sport, education, health, tourism, amongst other initiatives, our country would have generated millions in foreign exchange from new sources, not just from the energy sector, from new sources to complement revenues from the energy and small export manufacturing sector. The deliberate, unilateral, and spontaneous, and some say already downright malicious, decision to close Petrotrin has deprived us of hundreds of millions of US dollars. The government's laissez-faire attitude to non-energy businesses, even international ones like ArcelorMittal, has seen positive foreign exchange revenue generators leave our shores because of their incompetence or their lack of care. Large foreign revenue earners have left our shores, and I'll come to more when we look at the energy sector of all the plants that have closed. The result has been a dramatic collapse in our foreign exchange reserves, to the point where the government is forced to borrow at higher than necessary interest rates to refinance foreign debt. In my government's last full year in office, the official data published by the central bank shows that we had approximately $11.5 billion in reserves. That was about 13 months of import coverage. Where are we today? Boasting that you have saved the country, saving us, we have growth, you've increased the foreign exchange reserves. No way, not true. Under the last full year we were in office, $11.5 billion in foreign reserves. About 13 months of import coverage. Where's gone? It's true, because they have nothing to show for it. They can point to nothing. They could touch nothing that they have built or done in these years. The central bank puts our net official reserves now at $6.258 billion. Less than 8 months import cover. In practice, about 7.8 months import cover. Where we were at that high level of import cover, good cushion of foreign reserves. As of August 2023 now, 7.8 months import cover. This is even though government has received billions in US dollars. This is so, even though they've received billions in US dollars from traditional sources, including taxes and royalties from international energy companies and local manufacturers. I asked why the minister. I remind the minister, added to that, your royalties and taxes from foreign energy companies, local manufacturers. Added to that is another US 2.5 billion in drawdowns from the HSF. Added to that is another US $644 million received from the IMF via the special drawing rights. More than US dollars 1.3 billion more received from the oil windfall. Net borrowing of TT dollars 33.6 billion over the last 8 years. And millions received in foreign grants during the pandemic. Where has all this money gone? Where has all this money gone? Where has this money gone? On Monday, when the minister had the opportunity to level with the country over the actual state of affairs of our nation's foreign exchange reserve, the minister once again opted to misdirect and mislead. Misdirect and mislead. Serial deception taking place in this parliament in these budgets. I asked the minister, why are you referencing 2022 figures for foreign exchange? We are in the year 2023. Why are you referencing 2022 figures for foreign exchange holdings? Why is it Mr. referring to gross official reserves rather than net official reserves? Why? Again, it's to misdirect and mislead.
Trickery.
We need to know net official, not gross. No business runs on gross, except maybe your government. It's the only one running on gross, or grossly running. The answer is obvious. Why is the minister doing this? Having failed miserably to increase the real level of foreign exchange reserve, the government is now artificially increasing the statistic by adding the foreign exchange held in private accounts and commercial banks, over which they have no control, as well as the savings in the HSF, to come up with a new metric. He has made up his own new metric now. Instead of net official, he has a new metric he's calling external fiscal buffers. What? External fiscal buffers.
Engineering financial terms.
I've been reminded, instead of the minister not just making up numbers, he's also making up words now. External fiscal buffers. Madam Speaker, thousands of business people, especially small and medium-sized business people, small and medium-sized businesses, and even average citizens disagree with Mr. Imbert when discussing forex availability. When businesses are now facing closure because they cannot get money to pay suppliers, they're in crisis. SMEs constitute over 90%, I'm told, of registered businesses in this country. So it's a serious state of affairs. I was being told by several persons in the professional field, for example, not just people in the retail business, the SMEs, but many of the professionals, doctors, dentists. Dr. Rishi was explaining it to me, MP Rishi, about that very supplies that they use in their practice. You have to use forex to buy the various chemicals. He'll tell us what they are. We don't manufacture those things here. So this will not just affect any retail businesses. This is going to affect those people running professional businesses and other kinds of businesses like that. And these businesses hire many workers, especially in the retail business. For them, the inability of the employers to get foreign exchange will indeed be a crisis for them. They could end up losing their jobs. The shortage is also a crisis for parents and children who are pursuing education abroad if they cannot get the forex for fees and other things that their children need. Today I call on the Minister to engage in real and meaningful consultation concerning the nation's foreign exchange distribution. This needs to be a public forum in which members of the public and the other small businesses are allowed to participate. But for this to be an open discussion with a real chance of successful outcome, as opposed to yet another talk shop, the Minister needs to come clean to the population about who has been getting these billions in foreign exchange over the past 8 years. Who has been getting these billions? It is high time the Minister stops hiding behind legislation and provides answers to the population. Citizens being denied access to foreign exchange must be told who is getting that foreign exchange. How much are they getting? And why are they getting when they themselves cannot get that foreign exchange? I also challenge the Minister to tell the country what new foreign exchange revenue streams you have piloted and developed over the past 8 years.
None.
Since you have been in office.
None.
And how much revenue has been generated? My colleague is saying none. None whatsoever. I use this opportunity to direct the Minister to the UNC National Economic Transformation Plan. It's online, you can find it, which contains many new initiatives for potential foreign exchange earners, which, Minister, you're free to use. But you will not use it, so when we get back into office, we will have the plan for economic transformation. We have the plans to deal with the monster that is crime.
Salvation is here.
And therefore, Minister, your only salvation is to call elections. This is very dry, so I'm not getting this. Very dry. Stay focused. I turn now. Some water.
I would like to hear the Leader of the Opposition. And I'd ask all members to sort of maintain the composure. I think the Leader of the Opposition is about halfway through, given the time. Please, maintain yourself.
She's doing a good job.
Well, thank you very much. Do so, don't like so, eh? I've always heard that expression, Minister of Finance. I turn to another metric, the macroeconomic indicator with respect to foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is a significant source of foreign exchange, economic growth, and development. Growing FDI is a clear indication of investor confidence in an economy. What is the status of this country regarding foreign direct investment? Now, this is a good revenue stream to earn foreign exchange. According to the most recent data published in the World Investment Report 2023, FDI in Trinidad and Tobago was negative at minus 0.5 billion. Minus 0.5 billion. Instead of investment coming into TNT, investment was leaving TNT. In fact, the data shows clearly that while the Caribbean has had positive FDI, TNT has lost FDI for 5 of the 7 years during which we have data available under this PNM government. While the minister fiddles away with investor confidence in this country, other countries in the Caribbean are openly pursuing investors with actual initiatives, proper marketing, and deliberate decisions to address investor decision making. Under this government, from September 2016 to December 2022, Madam Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago lost US $1.5 billion in FDI, which had fled the country. $1.5 billion. Trinidad and Tobago lost under this government. By comparison, under my government, we generated high levels of FDI, with FDI from the energy sector totaling US $1.459 billion in 2015. Our last full year in office. In 2013, my cabinet approved a project development agreement for a new petrochemical plant, the Mitsubishi plant, down in the south. That has brought in more FDI, created jobs, and is a functioning product that is marketed. We turn now to the rating agencies, and Mr. Embert has a real passion, he has a real thing with rating agencies.
Yeah.
You remember when he didn't like the rating agencies, the reports, he brought in, what was it, Fitch? Yeah, he brought in a third rating agency. But I don't think we ever saw that Fitch report. So when he wasn't happy with the other two, Moody's and Standard & Poor's, brought in his own. So let's hear what these rating agencies are saying. The minister spent a lot of time patting himself on his back because of the Moody's agency rating for our country. Mm-hmm. To be clear, Moody's kept the country's credit rating at Ba2, the same level from the year before. That rating is within the non-investment grade category of junk status. Non-investment grade category or junk status. Let me remind you some indisputable facts. Before the minister became in charge of our treasury, our country's rating by Moody's was A3 under my watch. That was prime investment grade. Today, the minister celebrates a collapse to Ba2 junk status rating as a significant achievement. Only this minister can celebrate achieving a lower score than his predecessor and claim that as an improvement. Only this government. You get a lower score and you're patting yourself. Great, well done, hunky-dory. The minister has a long way to go to recover the ground and international credit rating and reputation that he has cost our country. This is nothing to celebrate. A stable or positive outlook does not matter when you are 5 levels lower on the rating. That's not it. And then even the outlook itself is speculative. And in this case, it is premised on the continued high revenues from oil and gas, following the same great conflict, Russia-Ukraine. Premised on improved oil and gas production, as well as government adopting specific harsh policies, include further cutting of transfer subsidies, implementation of property tax, high electricity rates, higher water rates, issues which severely compromise standard of living of much in our country. Back in July, the minister announced that the new rating would have positively impacted the cost of borrowing by government. However, again, nothing is further from the truth. In the recent bond issue of US $560, the government was forced to offer rates of interest, higher interest rates than other similar instruments on the market to attract investors. And again, minister announced this as a reason to celebrate. Offering higher interest rates because your rating has dropped otherwise. Remove the value-added tax.
There's an engineer.
One of the most vexing issues for businesses in our country of any size has been government's abuse of businesses by illegally withholding tax VAT refunds. Illegally withholding tax refunds. In May 2023, Minister Imbert admitted to Trinidad and Tobago that the government owed businessmen almost $8 billion, in fact. Kidnapped money, basically. $8 billion. Refunds at the end of March 2023. 6 months have since passed. So logically, more businesses would have applied for the refunds since then. The minister advised a combination of bonds and cash payments would be used to settle a large portion of these arrears, and suggested repayment would have started between June and August 2023. Those days have come and gone. I know businessmen listening to the Minister President's last presentation last Monday would have been very disappointed that the minister avoided any mention of settling the VAT refunds. No mention whatsoever. The hijacking of VAT refunds by the minister means that critical operating funds of businesses are inaccessible, and this directly affects the ability of these businesses to invest in stock, to pay staff, meet debt obligations to financial institutions, and it affects the business's credit rating and viability. This multi-billion-dollar outstanding and overdue VAT rebate is tantamount to the government forcing struggling businesses already burdened by crime, lack of access to forex, and many taxes to pay, to provide tax-free loans to the government. This is in effect a tax-free loan to government, because when they keep your VAT refunds and they do not pay it, whenever they pay at some point in the future, you don't get any interest on them. It is an interest-free loan that you're forced to do. We must amend that VAT law as soon as possible. You cannot tie up people's money in this regard. It cannot be done. And therefore, the VAT law should be amended as soon as possible. The Finance Minister is sending mixed signals to commercial sectors. He continues to punish legitimate businesses. They abide by the law, they put in their money, they pay the VAT, dutifully paying taxes, submitted their VAT returns in time. And these are the ones being punished, as against those who break the law and they evade the VAT, they don't pay it. So this is a serious matter. I think has been, every budget we've been talking about it has been a matter of serious concern. I move along now, having examined the macro indicators. We have seen that contrary to the minister's boast here, that he's grown the economy, he's done so very well, nothing is further from the truth, because the data doesn't lie. People will lie, but the data does not lie. In the last budget presentation, the minister boasted that Phoenix Park Industrial Estate was in the process of being commissioned, and MP will well know about it. This is the same Phoenix Park Estate that the minister promised since in the 2020 budget. Said it will be commissioned in September 2020. Come back in 21, 22, come back in 23, maybe 24. And will still be coming, but never arrived. 4 years later, the country still awaits this promise to materialize. So one would have reasonably expected the estate would have been fully occupied by now. On Monday, the minister boasted that his government has already closed 14 investments at the park. The fact is there are 78 lots, and 5 factory shells in this park, developed with taxpayers' money. If we believe the minister, it would mean that after 4 years, despite repeated assurances that the government had secured investors for this park, more than 3/4 of it is still unoccupied. I look at the minister's growth predictions. Again, minister has boasted about growth and how well we are doing. Again, the data gives a lie to those idle boasts. The minister made bold predictions about the economy's growth. On Monday, true to form, openly ignoring the facts in front of him, Minister announced an economic growth rate of 2.7% for 2023 and a similar projected growth rate for 2024, 2.7% growth. This minister is a serial offender. He's a serial offender. And I call him out today because each year he predicts a growth rate and it never materializes. It never comes forward. Serial offender in this regard. In 2016, the minister predicted a growth rate of negative 2.9%. The actual contraction for that year was what? Negative 7.5%. For 2016-17 now, he predicted a growth rate of negative 1.9%. The actual contraction was negative 4.8%. This is not just once, This is twice, and going thrice. For 2018, the minister predicted a positive growth rate of 1.9%. And the economy, a positive growth rate of 1.9%. And what happened? The economy fell by 0.6%. So you can't believe this, Minister.
I don't believe it every year. 3 times.
No, it's more than 3 now. We're going on 4. In 2020, the minister, perhaps he was too unsure, afraid, to give an estimated annual projection. He didn't give this time in 2020 an annual projection. What did he do? He gave a quarterly projection in that year. And in that year, the economy contracted in 2020 by negative 9.1%.
No. Unbelievable.
Let's move along. How much is this now? 4 or 5 or 6? I'm counting.
5.
In his 2022 budget speech, the minister claimed that because of multiple major energy projects coming online, sounds familiar, like this year again, all these major dragon dancing and so on, all this coming online. 2022 budget minister claimed because of multiple major energy projects coming online, the energy sector will grow by 13% in 2023, with overall economic growth of 5%. Here are the hard, cold facts, Minister. The energy sector output did not grow. He had said 13% growth, man. 13%. It did not grow. It contracted by 0.3%.
6.
And in last year's budget speech, the minister revealed his prediction from the high of 5%, revised, said it would be high 5%. He revised it downwards to 2%.
7.
Now, the Minister of Finance told us on Monday that the energy sector may contract by a further 0.6% in 2023. Do we believe him? We cannot believe him because every prediction has been wrong. Every single one. We cannot believe this. We cannot believe it. Let's move to another macroeconomic metric. Debt. When this government assumed office in September 2015, the public sector debt to GDP ratio was 44.1%. Remember that number?
Yeah.
This is when we demitted office. 44.1% debt to GDP ratio. According to the minister, the figure now is about 71.1% debt to GDP.
So much?
You have moved our country into the valley, what is it?
The shadow.
The shadow of the valley of debt.
And we fear no evil.
They don't fear evil, but I do. If we continue to contract the economy like this, we are in serious trouble. Serious trouble. From a debt to GDP ratio of 44.1% now to 71.1%. Let's talk about what that means. The adjusted general government debt outstanding in 2015, when we demitted office, was TT $75.4 billion. 2015, $75.4 billion TT dollars. What is it today? As of March 2023, That figure is TT $129.1 billion. Billion dollars. Where is all this money going? All the friends, all the borrowings, all these monies, all the drawdowns from HSF, all the loans. Where is all this money going? From $75.4 billion when we demitted office to March of this year, $129.1 billion. That is a 71% increase in the adjusted general government debt under this government, that government. These are official figures. What they show is that as a direct result of the policies of this government, there has been a substantial increase in debt since they took office. More than this, the minister's idle boast of falling debt figures noticeably ignores the 8 billion VAT refunds. So in addition to this debt that I'm talking about of 129.1 billion, you're owing VAT refunds of another 8 billion, okay? And their money is owing to contractors and suppliers of goods and services to the government. So you add that to the debt. And I note that the minister had committed to disburse TT 1.5 billion government guarantee loan. So you had to add that to the debt. Okay?
Everybody.
So amongst other things, to reduce monies owed to contractors and so on. In fact, given the minister's failure to provide accurate outstanding debt figures, we have had to resort to inquiries under the FOIA Act, Freedom of Information Act, which has revealed government owes billions to ASA, billions to TNTEC, and billions to NIB. Come crying about NIB underfunding and don't have money when billions are being owed by the government to the NIB every year. By withholding VAT monies owed to contractors, the government is deliberately skewing the public debt while suffering the business, strangling might be, you're right, strangling businesses that provide goods and services to the government. Let's talk about the deficit. Shall we talk about the deficit now? Another metric we can look to gauge or to gauge the performance of the government. Over 7 years, the government has run budget deficits totaling $62 billion. 3 of the largest deficits in our history in fiscal 17, 20, and 21. This works out on an average central government operation deficit of 8.9 billion per year. The government has announced another year of deficit in fiscal 2023, where the consecutive projected deficit, Madam Speaker, can we get some
Peace and quiet.
Oh, okay. Member for Superior? Member for Superior? I think the message has been sent. Please proceed.
Well, it's constant. It's constant. You will have your...
Member for Superior, 1 minute. Now, all members, just remember that according to the standing orders, we are supposed to listen, speak silently, and so on. So if a member is on his or her legs and complains that the talking is distracting, then we all have to take stock of that. All right? And therefore, I'd ask all members to watch their volumes and also remember that this is not a place for us to be carrying on a consistent conversation. If that's the case, then a member is free or the members are free to go out, continue their conversation and come back. Member for Superior.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We were talking about the deficit, and the minister has announced another year of deficit with a consecutive projected deficit in 2024. So going from 6 years of deficit to a tiny surplus in 1 year, back again to 2 years of consecutive deficits, for this minister somehow represents positive fiscal management. But here again, let's share the facts, madam. The minister has made much of the minute fiscal surplus relative to the sizes of the deficit budgets he has been running. However, I think the population is fully aware that the surplus was an illusion caused by an increased revenue on the one hand, as world prices of energy products soared due to the war. As I said before, it had nothing to do with government and this minister. It also the refusal by the government to meet outstanding debt obligations in the form of VAT and debts to suppliers, as I mentioned before. Indeed, if these debt obligations had been addressed in 2022 from the energy windfall, as it should have been, there would again have been a substantial deficit for the year of close to 10% of the GDP, and not the minuscule surplus the minister is pointing. So again, we don't believe the minister when it comes to the deficit. Now, something interesting has emerged from the minister's own books. Monday, the minister indicated in his statement the estimated fiscal deficit as 5.197 billion. This, when we look at the estimates of revenue, one of the minister's own books, was to be financed by borrowing. Using projected revenue of 54.012 billion and projected expenditure of 59.209 billion for fiscal 2024, Minister projected deficit of 5.197. But Madam Speaker, it's always said the devil is in the details when you go deeper and read the fine print, because this shows that the expenditure and borrowing figures are understated. If these are calculated using the minister's own book, and I have the reference here from the estimates of revenue, where borrowing is labeled under revenue, but you're already borrowing, it's a loan. When we look at that, we see that the minister intends to borrow about $13 billion. Not 5.197 to finance this projected deficit, but proposes to borrow about $13 billion. Then we look at what is the actual projected expenditure. Remember I said the minister it was 50-something billion. Again, when we go into the book, estimates of expenditure, in that book provided by the minister, the estimates of total government expenditure for fiscal 24 is projected at $71.4 billion. Not 50-something, $71.4 billion. Over $12 billion higher than the figure the minister provided in his budget statement on Monday. This figure now includes what is known as charges on account of the public debt. That means you're paying back interest and loans. It includes development program expenditure. And so all expenditure items, $71.4 billion. That is a true projected expenditure for 2024. So are we going to be seeing an election year in 2024? Is this an election year for next year, 2024, with a $71 billion expenditure? We will be very happy. Bring it on. We'll be ready. Bring it on. Bring on the election. Bring on it. Bring it on. Bring it on. $71.4 billion. It means that the difference between government revenue and government expenditure is substantially higher than what the minister told us in his budget statement. The government intends to borrow a whopping $13.244 billion in this fiscal year that we are going into. Madam Speaker, I turn now to the National Insurance Fund. This is a matter that is a sore point for many people. That's Rodney's pension. MP Rodney's pension. In the presentation on Monday, the minister announced government's intention to increase the retirement age from 60 to 65. Again, this is a repeated something. Last year, the Minister talked about it. For several years now, following various actuarial reports which cited a growing deficit between contributions and expenditures. In a statement, the Minister advised that the NIF is facing a combination of sustainability challenges and the risks of reserve depletion. The Minister further said that he was encouraged by the progress being made in the consultative sessions relating to the increase in the retirement age from 60 to 65. Still quoting the Minister, this process, including with labor unions, Madam Speaker, do I really have to ask again? If you can't behave yourself, go outside.
Minister. Minister Finance. Minister Finance. There was a little outburst that was really a little loud. Please remember, I heard it. So, I heard it and I saw it. Okay? So, Minister Finance. Minister Finance. Minister Finance. Minister Finance. Let's just please give to others as we like done to us. All right, so I have seen it and therefore it won't continue. Continue, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you very much.
Still talking.
So basically what the Minister was saying was that he's been engaged in this consultative session relating to the increase in the retirement age from 60 to 65. He said the process, including with the labor unions, is at an advanced stage of conclusion, with majority support for increasing the retirement age. Minister, I'd like you to tell this House and tell the country which union. Which union? Not just which union. When did you have these consultations? Where did you have these consultations? Because I found it very curious. I remember in his budget speech last year, the Minister said, we in the Ministry of Finance have recently completed our consultations on the retirement age held by Minister Manning. I hope you're not throwing Mr. Manning in the bush, or under the bus. We have completed our consultations on the retirement age held by Minister Manning with key stakeholders, including trade unions and business organizations. So this is in last year's budget. Minister is saying he has completed the consultations last year. And then he comes this year now and he says, well, the process including is of an advanced stage. Being made, progress being made. But last year he said what? Completed. So which one is the truth? Which one is the truth? Additionally, the Minister told us, in our consultations with the labor union, trade unions firmly oppose any retirement age increase. So which one is the truth and which one is the untruth? In our consultations, ours, the unions firmly opposed any retirement age increase. So, Minister, which one is the truth? Which one is the untruth? Did the Minister mislead the country in his statement last year or in this year? And the question will be why? Let's move along again, talking about this NIF. The number of contributors in 2015 was 516,926. 2015, last full year of office for my government. By 2017, the number had fallen to 479,036. According to the last audited report of the NIB, by 2022, the number of insured contributors has collapsed to 455,448. Job loss. Job losses under this government. This means, what does it mean? It means that there are now 61,478 persons less making contributions to the NIF. less than they were before they took over, resulting in lower contribution value than would have occurred had these persons still been employed. What this points to, it points to a factor that government has not considered in treating with the difficulties in the NIF. The obvious need to increase employment levels and significant job creation will generate a roll-on benefit of increasing contributions. Increase contributions. And how you do that? You create jobs.
Tell the engineer that. People
want to earn a living, they don't just want handouts, they don't want to be lazy. People want to have a livable job that they can live and take care of their families. But when they do that, it will increase your contributions to the fund. The more people get jobs, the more employed, the more contributions they will get. Has the minister considered that?
No.
He only considers, we wonder, what is what? Increase the retirement age.
To 70.
The unions are opposed to increasing the retirement age, and I am opposed to it. If you want to go that route, people should do so voluntarily. Should not. And if they go voluntarily, you still have to pay them their retirement benefits. Don't punish them. So here we are again. Contributions to the fund reduced. A comparison of the NIB reports reveal that 2,194 employees have stopped contributing to the fund between 2015 when we were there and 2022. 2,194 employees. Why? Why have they stopped contributing? Have they gone out of business? What has happened? That's a large number of contributors, again, depleting the fund. Why? How can you resolve that? Is it because they don't have forex to run their business? Is it you're not giving them back their VAT refunds so they can't run their businesses and they're forced to shut down? Tell us why 2,194 employees have stopped contributing to the NIF.
Can't, sir.
That suggests a substantial amount of business closure. This also means increased job losses as businesses go out of operation. Has the government assessed why they have stopped contributing? Has the government assessed what is the effect on the viability of the NIB? Instead of widening the contribution base, which government policy should have focused on, this government seems to have deliberately and illogically contracted the contribution base. So that is another fiasco waiting to happen. The unions have called for the government, the labor movement, for government to bolster the fund as well. But is it also mismanagement and incompetence? For those who are running the NIF, where they invest in the funds from the NIF? Why is it that the funds are being depleted in that manner? So partly because of reduced contributions from employees and employers. And it must be poor investment choices and poor management. Poor management.
Whose ministry is that?
I turn now to another macro indicator, inflation. This is one that everyone in the country is crying. Everywhere we went for the consultation, the high cost of living. What is inflation then? The rate of price increases. Citizens have been confronted by continuously rising prices, particularly of food and transport over the last few years, caused directly by the actions and inactions of this government. Again, madam, let's share the facts from the Central Bank Data Center. The most recent data is from July 2023. But it is known that since then, prices would have continued to rise over the last 2 months as well. Let's again look at the data. From 2015 to now, again our last full year in office, from 2015 to now, transport prices have increased by 27%. The price of food in general has escalated by 47%. This minister, and they gave her, 4%? 4%. This minister raised diesel by 194%.
Wicked.
Premium by 36%. Super by 158% since 2015. And they ain't riot yet. They ain't riot yet. They will riot with their fingers come election day. They will riot. The price of fish has increased by 26%. Milk, cheese, and eggs now cost 32% more. Bread and cereal prices have risen by 41%. Cooking oil is now a whopping 67%. Fruit prices are now 52% higher. Vegetable prices have risen by 61%. Wow. This is central bank data. This is not my data, it's not UNC data. This is central bank data. I give the workers 4% and beating their chests. Give the minimum wage $3.
Half a double.
Citizens seeking medical care now pay 45% more today than in 2015. Increase in housing costs and rent are also in double digits. For every increase in inflation, however small, we must remember we have a parallel and cumulative fall in the standard of living of citizens. It means that the real value of every dollar spent, the amount of goods and services a dollar can buy, continues to collapse. And this has had a crippling effect on citizens, especially those least able to afford it. Persons on fixed income, pensioners, disability, public assistance, and so on. But the government's decision to tie wage settlements to 4% means that men and women employed in the fire, police, prison, teachers, defense force, public servants, all must face the fact that their salaries have fallen in value, and the fall was substantial. The minister on Monday projected continued price hikes in 2024 and 2025.
Things will get worse.
Further price hikes, so that the cost of living will increase even further. I turn now to some of the enabling sectors. I've dealt with the macro, I've dealt with the crime. I want to look at some of the enabling sectors before I take my seat. I will start with the energy sector because the government has clearly indicated their intention to really put all their eggs in the energy basket, because not a single new revenue stream has been identified, not a single new revenue stream has been identified, not a single new project to bring in revenue has been identified. The energy sector is the main one. There have been minor little mutterings about the non-energy sector and exports and so on. None of that is going to work. It has not worked before. So let's look at it. I repeat again, there can be no prosperity if there is no energy security. None whatsoever. No prosperity if there is no energy security, because that's your main revenue runner. During the recent local government campaign, government spokespersons erroneously claimed that the former government, the government island, decimated the energy sector. Nothing is further from the truth. It's this government. It is this government who is dismantling the energy sector. They said when they went into office, that government, that all the contracts between NGC and the companies in Point Lisas had expired when they came into our government. And every budget debate, ad nauseum, they repeat, all the NGC contracts expired under the UNC. Ad nauseum. Well, it took some very brave and enterprising persons to prove your line. Fishermen and friends of the sea, I withdraw, to prove the untruth of your erroneous statements. The untruth, erroneous statements. Fishermen and friends of the sea sent an FOI request to the NGC, and they asked about the status of the contracts for natural gas supply between NGC and plants at Point Lisas as of August 31st, 2015. That's a week before that election, August 31st, 2015. The NGC replied via a letter dated August 20th, 2023, just a couple of weeks ago, saying there were 20 such commercial arrangements as at August 31st, 2015. And of these 20, only 2 were on a month-to-month basis, meaning that only 2 had expired. They say you hear untruth, that is untruth. You hear untruth, that is untruth. And we'll be singing that song every time in every budget statement. That is 2 out of 20. But every year in this debate, we hear about how they found all the contracts expired. I wonder who was the minister who found that? Who was the Minister of Energy then? Who found 2? No, the 2 when they were saying they were all expired. I don't know if it's the present young minister who was then Minister of Energy. But it was a PNM minister giving wrong information about those contracts. So, again on the campaign trail, in the budget debates, repeat this erroneous statement. Another erroneous statement that they peddle all the time is that Petrotrin was a ward of the Treasury. Again, nothing is further from the truth. When they were prosecuting the case for the closure of Petrotrin, they went all over the country bad-talking the company. And that was a state-owned company, but they were bad-talking Petrotrin all over the country. Bad-talking the workers who are citizens of this land when they were prosecuting the case to close Petrotrin. Up to today, I wonder if we'll ever find out the true and real reason why they closed down Petrotrin. That the truth will come to light. The Prime Minister then described Petrotrin as a ward of the Treasury. That has also proven to be false, misleading. In another FOIA request, same fishermen and friends of the sea were told by the Ministry of Finance. They did the FOIA. Ministry of Finance sent in a letter dated December 6, 2021. And the minister in the FOIA reply stated, for 2016, 2017, 2018, Petrotrin received no government subvention. Wow. None. Wow. None whatsoever. Wow. Wow. None. So what ward of the state are you talking about? There was certainly no subvention made to Petrotrin from 2010 to 2015. Under watch, none. No subvention. So where this ward of the state came from? Why did we fabricate this kind of misnomer? Because why? They wanted to close down Petrotrin for some reason or the other. Some reason or the other. So, no subvention. Finance Ministry has confirmed in another FOI request, no subvention. And I know for a fact, no subvention was paid during 2010 to 2015. There was a subvention, however, paid when? 2019. Why? Why? That was money to shut down and wind up the company. That was what that money was for. So no subvention paid 2010 to 15. None paid, as I've shared with you now. The only time paid was 2019 to shut down the company. What a shame. What a tragedy in Trinidad and Tobago. I refer to these two pieces of propaganda because it's important to debunk what has been said by those opposite. These are only just 2 pieces of propaganda. There are other untruths. We'll deal with them in due course. What we do know at this time, in the energy sector, things are going downhill. Totally dismantling of that energy sector. A lot has changed in the energy sector since they came into government, and a lot has gone downhill. It is clear against the backdrop of collapse in production, plant closure, migration of skilled workers, that government still continues to pat itself on the back and they think they're doing a good job. But they're the only ones who think so. Anybody who knows the sector, who work in the sector, knows otherwise. Let's look at the data again. The data doesn't lie. Persons lie. Data doesn't tell untruths. I withdraw the word. Yes, it's a little difficult.
Oh, but I'm sure now.
Right, thanks.
So please be guided. Withdraw the word, and I know you can do better.
The word lie is withdrawn. Instead, untruths. Untruths are untruths. And when we look at the data is very clear that between 2015 and 2022, there's a stark picture of a frightening decline in the energy sector, marked by the closure, since then, of the refinery 5 years ago. Then the closure of Atlantic Train 1 in 2020. The now permanent closure of some plants at Point Lisas, including closures of the Metal Steel Complex in 2016, the MHTL's M1 methanol plant in 2017, the Yara ammonia plant in 2019, the Methanex Titan methanol plant in 2020, all these plants shut down, Madam Speaker. All, and by whom? Under this government, under the watch of the present government. All these are now part of the growing industrial, what is it, junk, they call it, junkyard, scrapyard, scrap iron, that is Trinidad and Tobago, standing against the backdrop of a decaying landscape, which includes the ghost towns of Faizabad, ghost town Galeota, ghost town Marabella, ghost town Visabella, ghost town Claxton Bay, ghost town Palaseco, ghost town Santa Flora, and others. That is the backdrop, these ghost towns, where you have created these junk heaps of scrap iron. Every metric, Madam Speaker, is down in the energy sector, every single one. It is bemusing or amusing that the minister continues to tell this nation our economic hopes remain pegged to the energy sector, when as a government they have allowed every single metric, every single indice, and industry-specific indicator to just decline over the 8 years. In the last 8 years, Madam, let's see how this is. The country's energy sector has experienced a frightening level of contraction by evidence from drastic reductions of. There has been, since they came into office, 63% reduction in drilling activity, 32% in natural gas production, 37% in LNG production, 28% in oil production. Direct jobs in the energy sector have collapsed by 52% between 2015 and 2022. In 2015, those jobs were 22,500, and that did about 10,000 being employed. Rig days have fallen. 63% of rig days between 2015 and 2023. The energy sector is solely hanging on because Russia, Ukraine, the global prices. If we take away those global prices, the government has eroded the appeal, attraction, and the competitive nature of the energy sector. This decline in the sector under their government since 2015 has manifested in the scaling down or departure of energy service companies. I mentioned some that shut down. Here are some other energy companies gone. Schlumberger, Baker Hughes, Halliburton, amongst others. So it's been capital flight, experience flight, revenue flight, everything happening under this government. These companies are departing TNT because of a lack of upstream drilling activity. The decline of Chagaramas, another part of the country you may not associate with the Petrotrin shutdown. Decline in the energy sector has impacted in Chagaramas, which is a major logistic hub for offshore oil and gas. Lower drilling since 2015 means less rigs, less seismic vessels, less supply vessels, less need to supply food, water, and fuel to the vessels, and less demand for hotel rooms. This, coupled with the decline in yachty arrival, has led to the decline in the peninsula, as evidenced by the closure of restaurants, the closure of Republic Bank, the closure of Royal Bank, the closure of the massive stores, all under the watch of that government. These are markers of decline. Decline of Chagaramas, located in the constituency of the Prime Minister, started well before COVID and can be directly correlated to the decline in the energy sector. The PNM friends in the energy chamber will never tell you these things. They are too busy hugging the multinational oil and gas giants to care about the SMEs amongst the energy service companies, which are owned and operated by hard-working citizens of a country. They have sat silently for 8 years as the energy sector declines, and places, I said, like Galeota and Marabella turn into tumbleweed and scrap iron heaps. The government and multinationals have also forgotten about local content. The multinationals are back to their old ways of hiring foreign service companies ahead of those owned by citizens of TNT. In 2025, I give this assurance, when we return to government in 2025 or before, we'll come to end and we will make local content, inclusion of FAs, a priority in the sector. Natural gas production. I turn now to natural gas production. Every time the minister reads a budget speech, the minister gives a forecast for natural gas production for the following year. Again, always wrong. In the 2021 budget speech, delivered October 5th, 20, the minister said natural gas production would average about 3.2 billion cubic feet per day in 2021. Keep the number, save the number. 3.2 billion cubic feet per day in 21. What was the actual production? For that year, it was 2.58 billion.
That's one.
So projected 3.2 and was 2.58.
That's one.
In the 22 budget on October 4, 2021, Minister predicted in 22 natural gas production to be 3.37 billion cubic feet per day. What was the actual figure? 2.69 billion cubic feet. That's twice. In the 2023 budget, Minister said production will increase in 22 to just under 3.0 billion cubic feet per day. The reality is we are well short of that forecast, as the average for the year is around 2.5, 2.6 billion cubic feet. But this is wrong again. Wrong projections. Over and over again.
3 times.
One wonders if this is a deliberate pattern. Is the minister trying to paint a bright picture for the rating agencies and the IMF? Whatever he's doing, there's a significant gap between government's outlook for natural gas and the reality on the ground. The reality is the state of natural gas production is very worrisome. Even the Prime Minister has expressed concern. In the Express of September 13, 2022, the Prime Minister is reported to have said that he had seen a diagram on the outlook for natural gas production, which showed a marked decline in natural gas production around 2026, 27, and 28. The minister went on to speak of far-reaching consequences for government revenues and the quality of life of the people of TNT. In contemplating the consequences of the future, the Prime Minister must reflect too on the fact that this government took 8 years before they awarded any acreage for exploration. It was this government that led a failed bid round for shallow water acreage in 2016. It was this government that reversed and diminished incentives to stimulate exploration and development. So what the Prime Minister saw in that diagram should not surprise him at all. Then we come to the decline in jobs. The decline is further evidenced by the labor force data from CSO. These reports which are done in a quarterly basis, show persons with direct jobs in the petroleum sector in the third quarter of 2015, that is just as we demitted office, at 22,500. Can I repeat that? Jobs in the petroleum sector, third quarter 2015, 22,500. Fast forward to the first quarter of this year, 2023, the figure has collapsed to $10,000, meaning about 11,000 persons have lost their jobs. The central bank data from reports, central bank data room reports these figures on an annualized basis. According to their data, in 2015, there was 20,500 people with jobs in the petroleum sector, and that figure collapsed to 9,800 in 2020, a decline of 52%. 52%. These numbers of retrenched do not include the tens of thousands who were employed through SMEs and contractors who provided goods and services to the energy sector. What accounts for this? Where have these people gone? Attributing disclosure of Petrotrin does not come close to telling the full story. The decline is much bigger than the closure of Petrotrin, as I've shown you, with respect to production and all the other factors. This is a sector-wide decline, unprecedented in the history of the energy sector. And it is a product of policies of the persons who accuse the UNC of decimating the energy sector in 10 and 15. Today, the data demonstrates that it is this government, it is that government on the other side who has dismantled and is decimated the energy sector. Just a quick comparison, 2015 to 2020. When we look at drilling, rig days have collapsed from 63% 2015 to 2022. Oil production fell by 26%. Natural gas production by 30%. LNG production by 37%. Ammonia production by 8%. Energy sector real GDP fell by 28%. And of course, refinery throughput fell by 100%. As for oil production, the PNM has no plan. Oil production is now at approximately 56,000 barrels per day, and it keeps sliding every year. The changes made by the government, that government, to the SPT, the Supplemental Petroleum Tax from the last budget, have had absolutely no impact and have not stimulated investment. They boast that Heritage is profitable. Heritage Petroleum didn't drop from the sky in November 2018. Heritage Petroleum inherited a functioning, operational oil company, namely the upstream assets of Petrotrin, including Trinidad. That upstream arm of Petrotrin was always profitable, always.
Tell them.
So there is nothing to boast about when it comes to Heritage Petroleum. When they closed Petrotrin, they sent home many experienced nationals of our country, some with 20 years, 30 years, 40 years experience. They replaced them with people who are ex-employees of BP and other foreign multinationals. Did you know that? They replaced our nationals with ex-employees of BP and other foreign nationals. The premise being that such persons will somehow be magically better than those who work for Petrotrin. That experiment has failed. While we await the report of the Commission of Inquiry into the tragedy at Paria, we cannot help but wonder whether what happened at Paria in February 2022 was a result of the loss of institutional memory of the facilities at the port in Pointe-à-Pitre. A loss that was incurred when all the experienced personnel at the port operations of Petrotrin were sent home. The refinery has now been closed for 5 years. The government simply has no plan, just like crime. They have no plan. The chairman of Petroleum Holdings has thrown his hands in the air and says, make me an offer. No one is making an offer. No one is making an offer. And the refinery continues to rot and turn into the biggest scrap iron heat in the Caribbean. When they were prosecuted a case for the closure of the refinery in 2018, they described Petrogen, I told you, the ward of the Treasury. I've demonstrated that was not true. The closure of the refinery has decimated the economy of South Trinidad and all these fence-line communities. That refinery is there rotting away. And typical arrogance, Prime Minister says, he boasts, we have exited the refinery business. Simple. End of story. End of story. I turn now to great promises for the future made by the Minister. Dragon. The government has made this the central pillar of their energy policy. In fact, 5 years ago, budget speed delivered October 1, 2016, it was listed as the first game changer. While we support any initiative to get natural gas to our alien plants at Point Lisas and to the 3 LNG trains at Point 14, there used to be 4, if you remember, now there are only 3 LNG trains. The public ought to know the details of what was signed in Caracas last month. Details by the Minister of Energy and how this is different from what was signed by the Prime Minister in August 2018. The opposition notes that there has been no change in the position of the US as regards the provision of the license which Venezuelans have objected to. There are many more questions which we hope the government will answer in this debate. When, for example, is this natural gas from the Dragon field estimated to arrive in Trinidad?
Good question. Tell us.
What will this project cost the people of our country? I want to repeat, we are not opposed to the project, but there is need for transparency, especially where commitments are being made on behalf of T&T. I'm not done with the energy sector yet, but there's more to come with the dismantling of this sector. A few weeks ago, the Minister of Energy signed 3 deepwater production sharing contracts with a consortium of BP and Shell. They were the only companies that participated in that round. Overall, bids were received on 4 blocks out of the 17 that were put out. The signing of the contracts was done without the presence of the media. The media was not invited. We wish to remind the Minister that the acreage he's awarding does not belong to him. It belongs to the people of the country. Further, no information was put out as to what BP and Shell's minimum work obligations in these 3 blocks were. Is that not in keeping with the principles of transparency, which I'm sure these companies are required to subscribe to in Europe? So where is the transparency here? Like the Dragon deal, the public does not know what was signed with BP and Shell and what these companies have committed to. At the signing, the Minister of Energy went on to speak to the importance of the deepwater frontier to the country's future. And exploring the deepwater province is so important. Why then did it take the PNM 8 years to award 3 blocks in the period during our time? It took 8 years to award 3 blocks. In the period 11 to 15, our government, my government, awarded 9 deepwater blocks for a combined 1-2 hectares of acreage. This resulted directly in the discoveries off the north coast of Tobago that make up the Calypso project, which is being hailed as a possible savior of this country. If Woodside can make a commercial case for its development. And let's go on to Ikwan. Ikwan has brought no value to TNT. As our energy sector struggles for oil and gas, This government must state why millions of state assets have been abused and misused in sweetheart deals for Naikwan. From the very start, we in the opposition told this government not to waste valuable billion-dollar assets on a company like Naikwan that had no track record or skill to deliver on its mandate. But what did government do? The government took the WGTL plant, which burdened Petrotrin with billions of debts, and that was one of their own, Malcolm Jones, who burdened Petrotrin with debts. They sold it to Naikwan at a peppercorn rate. This government took our scarce gas supply. They gave Naikwan a guaranteed supply. But that wasn't enough. Then ensured that Naikwan have a pay or take agreement with Petrotrin for all offtake from Naikwan to be purchased. Today we ask the government, where is the millions in tax revenue that the Prime Minister promised Naikwan would deliver? Where are the jobs? Where is the forex? Today Naikwan is owing the state or the upstream, downstream company limited reportedly over US $19 million. $19 million. And Naikwan is also owing creditors billions of dollars. So after giving away billions in monies, taxpayers' monies, assets, all the Prime Minister could tell the public is about MAGA dog. That's all he could tell us. Today we want answers on when the government will recover the money owed to the state.
Answers.
I turn now to another enabling sector, a very important one. Again, I say there can be no prosperity without job security. There can be no prosperity without job security, as I turn to the labor sector. Over the past 97 months and continuing, government had unleashed a reign of terror and brutality against organized labor, the working class, and their representative trade unions, as never before. I call on the government. My colleague MP Nursing will delve more into the labor sector, but there's some areas I want to set out as policy guidelines. I call on government to immediately effect a fair resolution of all collective agreements in the public sector, to initiate the requisite comprehensive actioning of all recommendations and conventions advocated for by the ILO, and the incorporation of same into domestic law. A UNC government commits to ensuring that the following broad policy positions are enacted: the repealing and replacing of the dreaded Industrial Relations Act, the repealing and replacing of the outdated Severance and Benefits Act, the significant simplification of the registration process for trade unions, incentivizing trade union movement to encourage workers to become financial members of trade unions, a greater recognition and space for the role of trade unions in promoting income and wealth equality in the society through the free collective bargaining process, the resolution of all collective agreements in the public sector, a comprehensive actioning of all recommendations and conventions advocated for by the ILO, and the incorporation of the same into domestic law. A review of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and the Occupational Health and Safety Agencies. These and other priority areas will form the basis of UNC's focus for the benefit of trade unions and the working class, and be subject to widespread social dialogue with stakeholders and partners within the country before implementation and execution of same. I turn now to a very important sector, because if you're dead, you cannot enjoy anything else. If you're dead, if you're not alive, you can't enjoy any prosperity, you can't enjoy anything, good food or otherwise. So I come now to the public health care system.
No.
I make the point again, there can be no prosperity without health security. Have you worked out timing, please, in terms of how many pages I have to go? I'll ask you to calculate it. You didn't give me an answer.
62 pages,
Public healthcare system. The public healthcare system is littered with 8 years of collapsed promises, abandoned or delayed projects, warped priorities, lack of life-saving pharmaceuticals and equipment, critical medical staff shortages, and gross mismanagement, all leading to premature and unnecessary deaths of patients. These circumstances, Madam Speaker, have led to patients having to wait for long periods of time for surgery. Mr. Padis, since 2019, Ms. Drupati Kamal has had her cataract surgery postponed so many times that she's almost blind now. She has been awaiting cataract surgery since 2018. Wow. I could give many more names, Madam Speaker, of patients who have been waiting on the waiting list and who continue to suffer because of rank ineptitude and negligence under woeful mismanagement of this government. The poor health care includes a lack of medicine, insufficient nursing and senior medical staff, non-hiring of junior medical staff, shortages of surgical supplies, lack of operating theatre time and space for surgeries, and labs not functioning because of a lack of reagents. And yet, the Minister comes to this Parliament on Monday. The Minister boasts about state-of-the-art hospitals. And yet these are so severely understaffed, patients' lives are perpetually at risk. Let me remind the Honourable Minister, all these hospitals you're boasting about, they were begun under the watch of the UNC partnership.
We built.
And we completed the Scarborough Hospital that you could not complete. Let's talk about the state-of-the-art hospitals that the Minister boasted about on Monday. The new Point Fortin Hospital and the Rema hospitals lack so many doctors, nurses, other staff, that patients will suffer when they go to these hospitals. Let's look at some of the numbers of these hospitals. Arima Hospital, out of 115 on the establishment, there are only 95 doctors on the establishment. Out of 458 nurses on the establishment, there are only 384 at the Point Fortin Hospital.
The rest in England.
Let's talk about the Point Fortin Hospital. Point Fortin Hospital, doctors establishment, 23 out of 29 on the establishment, that's not so bad. Nurses, 113 out of 187 on that establishment. And may I ask, is there any government minister who has someone in a hospital for about 3 months now and who is not really needing medical care? I don't know if there's anyone who will own up, but I'm being told that there's someone whose mother doesn't need medical care but has just been housed at the Rema Hospital for the past 3 months.
Wow.
So I don't know.
Wow.
So that's the state of staffing at these great new hospitals, beating their chest and everything, but people know the truth. Families of patients often must do blood tests outside the hospital, return with the results sometimes 2 to 3 days later, and the patients have become critically ill and end up dying. Patients sometimes must waste precious hours for ambulances, and all of this in a public health sector that receives a large chunk of taxpayers' money each year under a government that claims to care. PAHO and WHO have identified TNT as being at a crisis point when we come to the NCDs. NCDs account for 3/4 of deaths in the country. The minister's much touted national strategic plan on NCDs is a hopeless failure. In successive budgets, government promised in vain to expedite surgeries, address shortage of medical personnel, collaborate with the private sector, investments for an appropriate health insurance model. But thousands of patients cannot get cataract surgeries, shortages of CDAP medical items. At A&E, there are sometimes 50 or 60 critically ill patients hoarded like animals in a pen. Some patients die in overcrowded emergency departments while awaiting urgent medical care and attention. It is like a national horror story. The government recently launched a 133 million car park at the San Fernando Hospital, while it is still to construct the much-promised $72 million, what is it, Doc? The cath lab, the angioplasty and angiogram lab at the hospital. That is a project that will be repeated year after year to set up the cath lab in San Fernando. Cannot, again, promises never. PNM promises. 8 years ago, the Prime Minister said he was waiting on the Welsh report to open the Couva Hospital. After the report, we were told a partner was needed to work with government. No partner came forward. It appears no one wants to work with this government. The government then recommended an offshore medical school to be facilitated there at the Couva Hospital. 8 years later, PNM promise never materialized. There is no offshore medical school. You remember the Minister of Health saying there were insufficient doctors to open the Couva Hospital. Today, hundreds of young, qualified doctors are waiting jobs, but no employment is being provided by this failed administration. There are almost 1,300 nurses missing from the establishment of the RHAs. Among those who are working, many are given 3 months or 1 year contracts and so are unable to meet the requirements for obtaining loans, the terms and conditions of employment, and the insufficient number of nurses in the system make an extremely demoralizing situation. In addition, there are insufficient specialized nurses in areas of accident, emergency, cardiac care, renal failure care, or other specialized areas of medicine. Despite speaking about the St. James Cancer Center and the Augustus Lung Hospital, again promises not materializing, being assigned as a cancer center, the whole management of chemotherapy across the country is totally inefficient. There's a lack of proper chemotherapeutic drugs, which are first-line drugs to be used. So when patients should be continuing to get the chemotherapy in cycles every 2 to 3 weeks, they find out there are no more of the drugs available. What's going on in the health sector? What's going on? Remember, they boasted this was the best healthcare in the world, but when they fell ill, they were flying out of Trinidad and Tobago to go to the United States for treatment. That's the best healthcare in the world. No more. At public hospitals, severely ill patients are still being kept in emergency departments, sometimes for days waiting for a bed on a ward. The Couva Hospital remains closed to medical care, except for COVID patients. This is a modern $2 billion institution that we built with hundreds of millions of proper medical equipment, being left to become what? Scrap iron as well, another junk heap. The government has simply abandoned a state-of-the-art hospital where we could be treating patients, as I say, who cannot get a bed in other institutions. Let's look at the COVID now. The death of thousands of patients rests squarely on the shoulders of that government and its COVID propaganda team. You remember them? COVID propaganda team. We had called for a commission of inquiry into this whole COVID mismanagement. After persistent calls, a committee was set up and it reported negligence in the management of COVID-19 patients. The committee made 19 recommendations in a 103-page report. Not one of those recommendations have ever been implemented, not one. We wish to assure the nation that when we get into government, we will make sure there is a full and independent commission required into the mismanagement and deaths of more than 5,000 COVID patients. We will do it. I turn to another enabling sector, one that is very close to my heart, and this is the education sector. Education sector. what is that, relaxing?
Disaster today.
Disaster today. Decline in national administration is most evident in the all-important education sector. There has been a deterioration of standards. There has been a lack of modernization. There has been a fall in the provision of appropriate and essential resources. Thank you. So let's reflect briefly, madam. You know, sometimes you have to reflect for where we were and how far away we've come from that position. 2015, Trinidad and Tobago is at the forefront of the world. We were praised by the then UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon for being the first country in the world to achieve universal early childhood education. And whilst I take credit for it, I take credit for the whole government and to the then Minister of Education, Tim Gopi Singh. We were also commended by the IADB in Washington. We were also commended by then US presidential candidate Hillary Clinton for our work in education. That's where we were. We received international global awards for the positioning of TNT in education as a world leader in ICT education. We became one of the strongest leadership teams in Latin America and the Caribbean. The GRULAC group, leading alongside Uruguay. We were head of the US President Barack Obama, with greatest respect to him. He was asking ICT companies in the US to provide about $100 million each so laptops could be provided for children in underprivileged areas in that country. Russia introduced laptops 1 year later. I say again, we were world leaders in ICT in education. Within 1 year of this PNM government coming to office, most of the successful policies were reversed. They scrapped the laptop program.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister went so far as to say that laptops brought no value to education. Imagine that position from a leader in the modern world. Under his administration, computer classrooms became a thing of the past. We had, my administration, at least 50 computers each in most secondary schools, along with ICT technicians. The technicians were dismissed and audiovisual rooms went into decay. The PNM scrapped the 21st century smart classrooms in which we had partnered with Samsung. Could you imagine such a policy position now in a world of artificial intelligence and one in which ICT is taking nations to the moon? The e-learning was scrapped by that administration. They soon had to confront the outrageousness of the decision when the COVID pandemic hit us in 2020, when more than 100,000 students were left without education for almost a year and a half. They had no devices. And the IT platform was not functional. They scrapped the purchase of textbooks for students when our administration had purchased more than 2 million textbooks over a 5-year period. 2 million textbooks. Every child in every school, in every class, in every subject received a textbook so they could receive their education. That was an example of our emphasis on education and learning. We filled all vacancies for teaching positions. All teachers in primary schools are certified with at least a first degree in education. We had moderators, facilitators, substitute teachers, and we worked with the Teaching Service Commission to ensure that almost all vacancies were filled, including the positions of deans of discipline. That's why today I said about filling these positions in the schools, the deans of discipline in schools and so on. Not only has the PNM government systematically destroyed the ICT systems on laptop, you know what they did as well? They scrapped the homework centers. I talked about them again today. A total of 402 schools had homework centers on evenings to benefit thousands. For a period, the school feeding program became non-functional. Today it is inefficient, with thousands of deserving students unable to get nutritious meals. That exists in a country in which poverty and malnutrition is on the rise. When we come to school transport, they refuse to pay drivers. Students suffer. Again, a reflection on their lack of appreciation of students and education. The performance in exams is no better. The pass marks in SEA worsen from year to year. More students fail the CSEC. Over the past 8 years, Trinidad and Tobago has experienced the worst level of education in our history ever.
What they're doing?
Last year, exams revealed more than 9,000 students, SEA, out of 18,000 failed to get a pass, Madam Speaker. No amount of remedial learning in the summer vacation would have helped any of these students to do better. The Rowley-led government has refused to continue construction of any one of the 71 schools that we left. Some were almost 98% complete. Ramai Trace Hindu, MP Murilal talks about that, Reform Hindu. Several schools, almost 98% complete some. The PNM government is victimizing our young children. We completed, under my administration, 106 schools. Now students are made to study in cramped, makeshift conditions and mandirs and mosques. That is the legacy of the PM in education after 8 years. That is the legacy after 8 years. I command, Yeshiva boys, shut down. In my constituency, was almost complete. Almost complete, just left abandoned with vines growing all over it.
Geographic discrimination.
Just left there in abandonment. When we go back, we will continue our constructions of schools, but Madam Speaker, I'll tell you this, it will cost so much more money because they've been abandoned for so long. Vandals have gone in and stolen the windows and the doors and the toilets and everything else. Such a waste of money for these places. In typical PNM style, school repairs and maintenance are routinely started almost at the end of the mid-year vacation. Each year, again affecting the education of students. Hundreds of vacancies now exist in schools, both government and denominational, worsening levels of performance. We had undertaken public consultations and introduced something called a continuous assessment component. Indeed, since I was Minister of Education, I remember this CAC, continuous assessment component, to support the SE. What has happened with that? Tech work skills trade education, we expanded from 42 schools to 105. What has happened with that? We encourage more teachers to be trained in tech work. There have been serious cutbacks in GATE for tertiary education. We had an education sector now that has become wrecked by incompetence, mismanagement, and a lack of vision, an absence of appreciation of the global dynamics in this sector. The government has severely set back our country's human capital. There can be no prosperity. Time check, please. There can be no prosperity, I say again, without food security. Without food security. Young people. How much time do you have, please? Madam, how much time do you have?
You finish at 5:38. So you roughly have maybe about 40.
40.
Yeah, a little more than even 40
I can't
minutes.
see you
yeah?
writing
Yeah,
too tiny.
yeah, about
40.
Yeah,
Thank
about
you.
45 minutes.
Yes, ma'am, thank you so much. Great. That gives me sufficient time. 50 minutes. 50 or 40?
38.
Again, I have to watch this way because I have no clock this way.
It's 4:38.
Okay. 4:49. 4:50. Okay, you give me a time check like 5 minutes before, so I can wrap up. Yeah? Thank you. Agriculture. Young people are not interested in entering agriculture because they don't want the back-breaking kind of agricultural work that older generations like me, we grew up doing agricultural work, Madam Speaker, believe it or not. We can look at how quickly Guyana is developing an export-oriented agricultural economy with soya bean, rice, and corn. We are still experimenting. What is UWI doing? What has happened to the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture? Under my government, we started to grow onions and potatoes. What has happened to that project? I say it should be brought back. What has happened to the potential we have for tropical flowers for export? Another revenue earner. Foreign exchange, we can export our tropical flowers. We have beautiful tropical flowers. We should let government focus on the production of ornamental flowers for export. The minister says that more local girls for meals will be used in the school feeding program. Question: how many farmers are being incentivized to produce more local meats, hams, sausages, eggs, chicken, fish, and on fish farms? Government must sign multi-year contracts with farmers to provide goods to the school feeding program. This is the only way they will be able to access credit and financing from banks to increase production. Under the PNM, food imports went from $5 billion to $7.3 billion. Is this because we're eating so much more? This is an indictment, I think, on the Minister of Agriculture and the government. We need to find out what categories of food have witnessed the highest increases in quantity, or is it really that increased prices have accounted for change and not quantities and quantities? We are at a stage where our capacity to import corn and soya to feed chicken production could be severely affected due to war and climate change. Where in this budget, where have they addressed this given our very high per capita consumption of chicken? We should focus our farmers on corn and soybean production to provide feed for chicken and small ruminants. The Agriculture Ministry has to have new and innovative thinking. They're regressive in their thinking and stuck in time. The agricultural degree program at UE must be revised. Students receiving GATE and entering the program must agree to start farms at the end of their first 2 years on lands provided by the government and including modern modes of production. At the end of 4 years, they will spend a fifth completing the academic requirements. They will be trained as agri-entrepreneurs from the classroom itself. This is making learning not only relevant, but adding jobs and food for the table. This type of program will find private sector participation. In a similar way, community farms can be established and achieve production within 12 to 18 months. With respect to the question must be asked as to whether the technical people in the ministry share and better yet are able to push such programs to success. You know, Madam Speaker, wooden furniture made of high quality teak, pine, mahogany, sip are woods that are in high demand. We can get the lumber here or in Guyana, and we can do this kind of work and export it again, earn foreign exchange. Currently, we are importing Malaysian rubber wood furniture. With a little vision and retooling of the youth program, what prevents us from using high-quality furniture for local use? As we grow exports, youths can earn when they learn, while they learn. This is not the kind of imaginative minister that currently exists. So there is the opportunity for entrepreneurship is real. but it requires seeding and mentoring. Ways in which the government has dismantled the sector. One, they failed tax and duty concessions. They have neglected to introduce a comprehensive program of tax concessions, subsidies and waivers for agricultural needs like chemicals, vaccines, fishing vessels, equipment and pest control. Two, inadequate compensation for natural disasters. In November 2022, you remember, there was unprecedented flooding affecting farmers significantly due to government's failure to manage waterways properly. Despite this, almost a year later, government has not compensated these farmers, discouraging potential entrance to farming. Three, wholesale market modernization. Promises of improving and expanding wholesale markets have remained unfulfilled for years. Land acquisition. The failure to conduct a meaningful GIS audit by the Land Administration Division has led to an increase in squatting on agri-lands. Land lease delivery. Over 2,000 farmers with expired leases or awaiting 2-acre agricultural plots from Carney 1975 are still waiting for government action. Promises to honor this arrangement since 2015 remain unfulfilled. 6, access roads and drainage. Government has neglected to develop proper access roads or drainage for agricultural lands, exacerbating flooding during the rainy season. Farmers have had to resort to crude irrigation methods due to irregular water supplies. Technical assistance and extension services. Again, these have failed to address locust infestation, the spread of the giant African snail, and there's another disease with a name, a Chinese name, but I can't pronounce it right away, harming crops throughout the country. Financial support for farmers without any land leases tenure. Small farmers cannot access government support or assistance, limiting their ability to recover from crises like theft, flooding. Neglecting rehab of estates is another failure on the part of the government. 10, ineffective measures against pre-deal larceny. This is a repeat cry from farmers. The unit has been virtually dismantled due to inadequate funding and resources, resulting in rampant theft of produce. So these are some of the problems in the agriculture sector. I can't see what in this budget, and I hope the Agriculture Minister will come to speak to us. We do have a shadow agriculture MP Minister here who will go deeper into this program. On another note, Madam Speaker, the institutional quality that the Minister boasts about. We have here a repeat every year. Promises of a gambling commission, promises of National Statistical Institute, promises of so many others. Here they are. The TAT Revenue Authority. Madam Speaker, not to be controversial, the Minister has promised this to come on board. I know we raised the issue of it being sub judice. It is in fact sub judice, but I will not go into what is before the court. But it's a promise PNM never materialized. TTRE in every budget has been promised. Mm-hmm. Minister is now telling us it will come on board by sometime later this year. Matter the court hearing is in November of this year, so it could never come on board before November. And of course, we know how court matters are. There are always steps further forward. So I don't see it again as a promise that will materialize. Procurement legislation, another step in institutional quality the Minister talks about repeatedly. We have seen the total gutting of the procurement legislation, and we know that only recently another exemption notice has been filed in September 2023. So in addition to all the other notices, another one has recently been filed. I believe the motion has been filed before the Parliament to negative it. Gambling Commission, repeat, PNM, promises never materialized. The Statistical Institute, there's one said that Stalin loved to have or not to have statistics because he believed that statistics was the best way to control and manipulate the minds of people. And I wonder if the reluctance to have this institute taking place is due in part to that if we don't have the statistics, the true statistics, we can be misled. Another thing that has been promised over the years, transfer pricing, still hasn't happened. The minister's come back again to offer us transfer pricing. So these are some of the areas my colleagues will go deeper into, and I want to thank all of you as I close my contribution today. Thank you. So, Madam Speaker, as I come to the conclusion, what we have before us is a population that has reached boiling point. People are fed up, nothing works, and no one in government seems to care to fix it. The education sector has fallen apart. Schools, bullying, sexual assaults, crime have now become normal. Infrastructure has collapsed. Every week some community must burn tires just to get some attention. Healthcare is beyond recovery. Essential machines don't work. Essential medication is not available. Healthcare staff are targets for criminals. Private healthcare is only accessible to the wealthy. Young doctors are terrified of speaking out because they fear victimization. And then we move on, Madam Speaker, public utilities. My colleague MP Paradise will speak more on that. Most inefficient, WASA and TNTEC. Then we go to the labor sector, workers and unions. Just because they're trying to save themselves from drowning, just because they want to negotiate for better salaries, they're treated as enemies of the state. Why do the hard-working people of this country not deserve to be paid well? Why must they not want to have what everybody else wants, a good car, a good house, and so on? It seems as though the attitude by government is no macaroni pie for these labor people and the union people and workers of the country. Why must having things be for only the fake elites and financiers who have captured the government? And why, to all the pain I've sketched out earlier o'clock about the crime and the suffering in the country, this is what causes our national anger. Everywhere you look, people have reached raging frustration. They're few and mad. They're short-tempered. Many have a constant angry facial expression. Every day there are home invasions somewhere. There's murder somewhere. There's vandalism somewhere. And now extortion, Madam Speaker, is becoming the order of the day. Every day, reports of extortion. Every day. Why is this normal? Everyone has run out of patience with this government. And I dare government to tell us otherwise. I dare government to challenge me when I say people have become psychologically downtrodden, beaten, and abused because of all the social problems they are facing on a daily basis. This government appears as an architect of pain. People now believe that to get ahead, there must be some form of skullduggery. And the government is leading by example. Let them challenge me on this. Government has literally driven working people to the point of fatigue and exhaustion. The finance minister continues to make poor decisions and even poor projections and expects people to believe him. I don't believe anybody believes them again. I said before and I say it again, this budget is irrelevant. It is irrelevant because even as I speak today, even as we are here today, comfortably ensconced in this chamber, talking highfalutin talk about the economy, some innocent citizens will be robbed and murdered. There is a war on the outside. Criminals are at war with innocent citizens within a government, whom the government have left to fend for themselves. I repeat, there can be no prosperity without safety and security. There can be no prosperity without safety and security. Only yesterday, I mentioned to you, TTPS said 13 out of every 100 murders. That means 87 murderers are going free. The government has chosen to bury its head in the sand while they boast about how to prosper. What I see, as I told you, people suffer. The government is no longer in charge, the criminals are in charge. And so now is the time, I say, Madam Speaker, as we look at the newspaper headlines today. You know, from January to about the 23rd of September, there were over 90 front page newspapers front pages dealing with crime. About 90 front pages. Evidence. No, I need this. Thank you. So I will just hold it up, Madam Speaker. The minister told us on Monday that the government had contained crime. Contained. Use the word contained crime. I don't understand what that means, because we have seen the crime worsening year after year after year. When we were last in office, the murder rate was about 420, if my memory serves me right. And we have reached a situation where last year murders crossed over 600. And we are heading into this year another situation of murders going over 600. And the newspaper today gives us no hope. The Newsday today, Friday, October 6th, murder rate worsens. 60 killed in September. More people killed than the days in the month. 60 people killed. 80 more murders in September last year. So where is the containment, Minister? Where is the containment in these murders? Lack of evidence, they say, hampers investigation. And then in the Guardian of today, extortion caught on tape. Extortion caught on tape. A whole new crime industry is growing in our land. And then when we go to the Express of today, contained within it more horror stories about crime and about the police now. Police now in a situation where the gangs are targeting policemen. So it's just getting, as the Trini would say, wassa and wassa and wassa. I don't see any containment in any of this. Today, Madam Speaker, I just close. I speak for the people who are paralyzed with fear. Some ask why are civil society, business groups, validators, and large swathes of the country so silent and numb about the violent criminality and the government's persistent, blatant economic and social destruction. It is a deep fear of this government which terrorizes people. It is because people know that we lived under a wannabe dictatorship that will stop at nothing to punish and destroy them for standing up for their livelihoods. Ours is a country fearful of violent crime, fearful of the government that is supposed to protect us. Remember, bad governments have always inflicted the worst evils that mankind has ever had to endure. The root causes of poverty is social injustice and the bad government that abets them. So when your government, whom you employ to work for you, has chosen to cruelly and deceptively abandon you to the whims and fancies of criminals and economic parasites, I say to citizens of our country, you must stand your ground. You must get up and stand your ground. Now is not the time to wither and fade in the background. Now is the time for every right-thinking citizen to stand together, to band together, to remove this incompetent and wicked government. Madam Speaker, I thank you for your time and the patience of this House. And before I go, I just want to say today, our beloved Clerk of the House, some of us have worked with her for so long. When I entered the Parliament so many moons ago, Miss Jackie Sampson Miguel was the Clerk of the House. And I'm told that she will proceed on pre-retirement leave. And we want to say thank her and to wish her all the best.
Minister of Youth, Development and National Service.
You gotta stand your ground.
UNC.
Don't back down.
On the road to victory, standing strong, and we ain't backing down. But we fed up of this clueless dictator, we're running the island.
Oh yeah.
Welcome to my show. push back. So it's time for us to stand firm and show them we ain't taking that.
So stand your ground. But if you fed up on the crime, stand your ground. The food price is too high.